I have 6 o'clock. I want to call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of Tuesday, August 11th. We'll start out by looking to see all my commissioners are here, so we have a quorum. We'll start out with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Didn't put the other one up, okay. I didn't think so, but I sort of pulled my shoulder out for one. I wondered what it was. The city administrator has asked that everybody keep their mask on as much as possible. So the commission is going to follow that lead. If anybody has a lot of trouble hearing us with the mask on, you may need to raise your hand and we'll raise our voice a little bit or put it down a little bit so everybody can hear. I think that's only fair. If you guys have to leave them on, we should have to leave them on as well. We're going to start out with the citizen participation or citizen comment period. For those of you who don't know how it works, you'll come up, and if you want to talk at the public hearing, you don't have to speak at the first one, but we'd like you to come up and state that. I have a list of names. You're supposed to sign up for this citizen comment period. We may not look like we're looking right at you or paying attention to you, but we are. Okay, we may be taking notes, but by law, we can't respond. So don't think we're just blowing you off. By law, we can't respond, and we may be taking notes or something, and somewhere during the course of the meeting, hopefully your questions get answered. That having been said, you have 3 minutes to talk. You'll be on the clock. The clock will stop after you state your name and address. The first name on the list is Tony Frasco.
Thank you. I'm here tonight for the garden home. Okay, thank you. I'm here for garden homes and zoning laws. I served many years for a town. Your job is to be Lady Justice. You're supposed to be balanced and blindfolded. You are here to serve the residents and not the mayor and council, even though they've been saying and demanding this to be pushed, railroaded through, and I'll be damned if I'm going to let it happen. I don't want special treatment for any applicant. There are too many changes in this request from the applicant. That we have zoning laws. We might as well throw out the zoning laws if we're not going to follow the laws. Just a reminder to the people, a hardship is not money. It is a variance issue and nothing to do with money. So please follow the law. I know you should get an environmental impact study. If you haven't done it already, you're letting the people down. You're letting them down heavy because this has to be done to find out how it's going to impact the town. And I haven't seen anything of it. We also need an economical study for the town, and that will be paid for by the town, but the impact study has to be paid for by the applicant. And you're moving way too fast on this. This is going to be forever. This is not something you can change after and say, oh, wait a minute, we made a mistake. We have to keep the characteristics of our town. If you don't do it, you're letting the people down. I'm very afraid that this has all come to a conclusion already in your minds, and I pray that I'm wrong. I feel as though you should just do what's right for the residents and not for the mayor and council, because they've been pushing the heck out of this, sewers, everything else. And also, the applicant put down on his July 2nd application that he's under contract. How can he be under contract when this hasn't been passed? And all his changes are ridiculous for a variance. Usually a variance requires a few changes. These are drastic changes. I don't want to see a conglomerate go in there and then the town has to live with it. So please, look at this, get an environmental impact study and an economical impact study before you make any moves. The council's ready to move on this in 2 days, which is ridiculous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Frosco. The next name on the list is Kurt Carter.
Commissioners, my name is Kurt Carter. I live at 21911 Paseo Cordo Drive. My wife Sherry and I have been Garden Ridge residents since July 2007. We chose to live in this city because of the spacious lots and its small town feel. It was and still does feel like living in the country, but I'm afraid that could all change very quickly if Mr. Overman's requests are granted. We do not support the building of garden homes with their reduced lot size, square footage reductions, and street size variances, and we do not support the issuance of special use permits or any rezoning if so required. We respectfully ask the Garden Ridge Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council to deny Mr. Overman's request. Placing 70 homes within the same square footage where currently only 9.6 would reside will disproportionately increase the demands on city services. While garden home property owners will pay property taxes, they will pay less than other City of Garden Ridge residents, and in effect, the city services they receive will be subsidized by current residents of the city. If Mr. Overman's request is approved, you will potentially set a legal precedent, opening a Pandora's box that will change the wonderful nature of our city forever. Once that box is opened, we will not be able to close it. Others who request similar variances in other parts of the city will be hard to deny and likely legally challenged if they are. We can only hope you will not be led by dollar signs, but by your hearts and good sense. Do what is right for the citizens who currently call Garden Ridge home. Citizens who had a choice and chose to buy property in a city that rejected postage stamp-sized lots, provided some neighborly elbow room, and exuded a small town atmosphere. This is not San Antonio, Schertz, Cibolo, or even New Braunfels, and we'd like to keep it that way. Please deny Mr. Overman's requests. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Next on the list, I have Sherlyn.
Krivka.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good evening. My name is Sherilyn Krivka, and I've been a resident of Garden Ridge for 48 years. I served 2.5 terms on planning and zoning and am aware of the time and dedication it takes. And so for this, I thank each and every one of you, especially Kitty Owen, because we served together. So I thought there would be a lot of comments about this tonight, and I wanted to take you back a little bit in history, since I evidently am the historian. I am very concerned about opening the door to high-density housing in Garden Ridge. While I was on the commission, we were approached by a gentleman who wanted to develop a farm area, very large farm area, about 300 acres, which was 1 mile northwest of 2252 and 3009, into a community of garden homes. He was at that time developing a new area on the south side of 1604, east of Nacogdoches, and explained how well it was going and how high the quality was of the construction. We explained to him, which I'm sure he already knew, that we would only allow residences of 3/4 of an acre lot sizes and larger due to our lack of sewer facilities. Then he began to explain about the plan he had to bring in a hidden system, which basically were huge tanks that would process the effluent virtually underground. It was fascinating. Do you remember that? It was fascinating. He noted that this had been done recently in the Dallas area, and he even subsequently brought the inventor of the system to talk with us. What I learned is that it is absolutely amazing what developers can come up with. But this system was definitely a no-go. We stood up for the residents of Garden Ridge at this time. We had surveyed Garden Ridge prior to that, and there are some people that really want to stay here until they die, but that was just a very, very small percentage. They want to stay here till they die, and they say, I want to move someplace smaller. I mean, it's understandable, but that was not the majority. Recently, I went to the community that I believe is called Antonian Highlands. That's the one he said that was just so great. And I was so glad we stuck to our guns. Today, that property he was talking about is now Trophy Oaks, which we developed, or the city of Garden Ridge worked with a developer a couple of years after that. So sometimes things don't happen right away, but you can wait and maybe something better will come along. I'm certain that there are others here with reasons not to allow garden homes in Garden Ridge, and I will not talk about them in order not to be redundant. I did, however, find many of the variances on the agenda very, very troubling. I would call to your attention.
Ma'am, your time has expired. Your 3 minutes is up. Thank you. I apologize.
That's all right.
I didn't, maybe I didn't make that clear. You have a 3-minute limit
Right, I saw
to make your
that.
presentation.
I didn't time it
Okay.
at home.
Okay. Next on the list is David. Yes, sir.
I didn't read the instructions till I sat down, so I'd like to speak after I listen.
Okay. What I asked you to do is say that loud again. It has to be on the streaming service.
My name is David Pensack. I live at 19710 Secret Cove, and I would like to speak after. I didn't read the instructions before, so no.
Thank you, sir. Next is Astrid Weiser.
Hello, my name is Astrid Weiser. I live in 9902 Catherine Glen in Regency Oaks, which is right across from where the project wants to take place. At the last P&Z meeting, when I heard Mr. Overman's plan, I was actually very excited. And I even told my husband, we should even maybe buy a house so we have it and just move across the street from us. So I was excited until I got the details. So when I saw the details and all the variances that they want to change, and he kept referring to cotton crossing homes up in New Braunfeld. So I drove up there to educate myself and to get a better feel what Mr. Overman is referring to. Well, the homes up in Cotton Crossing in Green, they are cute, but it's not what I would call high-end homes, as it says in the paper, or even like luxury garden homes. They're cute. Most homes have 2-car garages, a few have 3, and also a few have a 1-car garage. The driveways, they're extremely short, and the ones with the 1-car garages, The cars, they're all, like 2 or 3 cars are kind of like cramped in the back. The trash cans, the bins, they're all outside because there's no room in a 1-car garage. And one family had their garage open, and it was due to storage because the homes, they're just so small. I mean, so I get that. So I was able to talk to a few neighbors working around in that neighborhood, very nice people. So they said they like living there, but they also told me there's no age restriction. I thought it's a 55 neighborhood and above, which was stated at the last P&Z meeting. It's not. He told me that there are also families living in there, a few, but they are in there. And some homes are also used as vacation homes, where they come like once a month from up north and just spend the winter in Texas. They're also used as businesses. There's one realtor, which is his neighbor. She uses her business in that house. So to me, it's like the homes, I just ask myself, would I move in a home like this? I wouldn't if the time comes to downsize. And I encourage anyone, don't take my word. I mean, drive to Cotton Crossing and like ask yourself, is this where you would downsize from your Garden Ridge home to a house like that? I like the idea, and I do support garden homes like here in Garden Ridge, but I think that the lots have to be bigger, the setbacks have to be bigger, the homes have to be bigger, and they have to be a better fit for Garden Ridge. And I'm all for it. Like I said, I would be the first one to buy one if it's with the right fit. And yeah, so like I said, don't take my word. Drive up there. It's cute, but it's not what we would want here in Garden Ridge. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list, I have Carolyn Collins.
Hi, good evening. Carolyn Collins. I'm at Regency Oaks at 9920 Michelle Hill. And the reason I was prompted to come out tonight is I understand all the variances being requested. What I guess I don't understand is what is the value, what value is being added to Garden Ridge by authorizing over a dozen variances for this request for 65 to 70 garden homes in this location. I haven't seen that articulated anywhere. Excuse me. So I haven't seen that articulated anywhere. As well, what's the long-term impact on Garden Ridge, as mentioned before, if this or subsequent requests for variances of ordinance are approved? Does Garden Ridge plan to completely redo its ordinances? Once we open this door to this level of ordinances, what is going to be the way forward? So again, what's the vision for the community long-term? I sought a home in Garden Ridge when I moved here with a relocation with the military. I had planned on this being my permanent location, and I can tell you I spent 90 days in a hotel looking at over 50 homes in the area. So I work at Fort Sam, and I'm willing to make the 20-mile commute for the value this community brings to me. I had plenty of opportunity to live in communities all over San Antonio that offered this kind of housing outside subdivisions. As a member of the Regency Oaks subdivision, obviously this new community would be directly at the entrance to the subdivision I live in. So I'm greatly concerned not only for the space, but also the impact on property values in the area. I am a little surprised that Garden Ridge is considering garden homes. I was previously in the DC area for 10 years, Hampton Roads before that, and have kind of lived all over the country. Normally you see Garden Ridge home or garden homes in areas like DC, Dallas, LA, other large community sections where land is at a premium, so you look at small lots and put close together housing. When I was in DC, I lived in Old Town, and I can tell you my neighbor was 10 feet off my property line. So I wasn't looking to repeat that when I came to Texas, where land is more ample to be in the same situation in the community where we have close together homes. What is this community going to be, this land? Is it going to be commercial or residential, rental properties or homes for sale? And what will the adjacent property be, commercial or residential? I believe this can be a cash cow for the owner or developer, low land cost, high rent, high sale property per acre of land space, but not great for the permanent residents of Garden Ridge. So I ask for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. Last on the list, I have William Dawson.
Good evening. William Dawson, 9613 Meadowroo. I've been a resident here since 1997 when I built my home. I planned it. I went through a builder. We complied with all of the ordinances. I have been compliant with all of the ordinances since 1997. I'm very satisfied with the infrastructure improvements that are going on in the city of Garden Ridge and the leadership that we've had. I am extremely worried over this request for variances. I have entered my comments through the city secretary, which I believe will be read aloud this evening. And you'll hear in depth my feelings about the safety of 20-foot wide streets or 10-foot odd measurements on property lines or 28-foot frontages. I'm not sure you put a house on a 28-foot frontage unless it's a shotgun Louisiana house. So while my comments will be read out already, I will not take anybody else's time other than thank the Planning and Zoning Council for taking your due diligence and looking at this situation very carefully. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Moving right along, the next item on our agenda is approval of the minutes. I trust all my co-commissioners have read the minutes, and if there's any corrections or anything, they should let the city secretary know by now. I will entertain a motion for the minutes.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes as written.
I have a motion that we approve the minutes from last month's.
A second.
I have a second approval and a second. Can I have a vote, please?
Aye.
It passes unanimously. We can move on to the next area, which is the petition by Tony Overman that a lot of people are here for. They spoke to some of the people that spoke to some of the concerns that they have. Mr. Overman has a presentation that may answer some of those concerns. It may magnify some other concerns. I think what you have to remember more than anything else with planning and zoning is that we are a recommending body. We hear it first, okay? Then we make a recommendation to city council. They are the deciding body, okay? We think we got a good cross-section of the community, and we hear what you had to say, and we've heard it from our neighbors since it's been published. And you can trust that we have done our due diligence and looked at the plans much like you guys have. And I'm interested in hearing what Mr. Overman has to say. Mr. Overman? You are not limited to 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Is it all right if I undo this while I'm talking? Thank you. First of all, thank you for allowing me to make this presentation today. committee, and Dr. Miller. My son and I, Chris, it's a little bit like sitting there and Stephen in the Bible and being stoned to death while you're alive with some of these things. I respect people's opinion, although there's a lot of misunderstanding with the whole presentation of what we were wanting to do. I mean, and saying this at the sake of just throwing the whole thing out the window, and not saying this in an arrogant way, and I don't mean it that way at all, so I'm prefacing by what I'm getting ready to say. I don't need to do this here in Garden Ridge. I don't need to do it at all. If you would please, just let me speak. Thank you. I wanted to do this because I thought it would bring a great value to the city. I realize there are people here today that spoke that don't agree with that statement. But there are also a lot of people that do believe that it would bring great value. We are one of them. And part of I think some of the comments that people are making is based on fear and not understanding and not knowing the truths of what we're wanting to do. We understand that it's up to you and the city council to make those decisions, but some comments that were made here today and have been made online, social media, were just totally false statements and untrue and not factual. And I would like to clear some of those things up today. First of all, there's been some comments, this has already been, the mind's been made up of the Planning and Zoning Committee and City Council. That is not true at all. I've been building in this city for almost 25 years. I've faced this different committee members and City Council for 25 years. I've been building here for a long, long time. I feel like I've built buildings that are respectable buildings. People have commented they're attractive. They've brought business to the city, they've brought tax dollars to the city, and I'm proud of them. I've never done anything in this city I don't think that I'm not proud of. And I've had a lot of compliments from citizens that have come up to me and said the same thing. So this is not I don't think this is a push through you as a committee, and I know that the city council members, if anybody's here, certainly is not a push through. We're here hoping that we can show you that this is value. And I understand there's people don't agree with that. But part of this is that, that garden homes, for some reason, are lumped into the same category as low-end housing, apartment complexes, or something that would lower the value of people's property, which is totally a fictional and a non-factual statement. It's just not true. When you have a home that's between the price range of $300,000 to $400,000, I don't consider that to be low-end housing. I think it's homes that are, and we're going to show you some pictures in a second of what our vision is to do. There's a lot of comments of why do you need so many houses in one area? Well, that's what garden homes are. Garden homes are built for a purpose, and it's for people. And I understand the people that spoke don't want small homes. I appreciate that. I respect that. But you're not the only people that live on this planet. There are people that do live here and they do want to stay, and they don't want larger square footage of homes, and they don't want large yards to take care of. And this is what this does. It provides an option for those people. In regards to lowering property values, I don't even know where that's coming from. It doesn't. I was just in Dallas a couple of weeks ago, and there were, and as a matter of fact, I have a picture of one of them. I have several pictures that we had made today, matter of fact, for this meeting, of the type of home that we're looking at doing. Cotton Crossing, a young woman who came up, I didn't turn around and look at her, spoke about her going to visit that facility, or Cotton Crossing. Cotton Crossing is kind of where we got our idea and where we want to pattern it after, but not after the identical every single house. There's some houses in there, there's quite a few houses in there that I do not like. I want to raise the value of and the look of those houses to another level. So although you went and looked at those houses, I'm not patterning every single house after that. I love the look. It was a Norman Rockwell look. I think I stated that to you once before, with the trees down the line, no driveways, no cars parked out front. The cars in the back and the parking lot or the driveways and the garages in the back, they are smaller, but there's plenty of room for people to park. She commented that there was a comment about, trash cans that were sitting out back. It was trash day and that I was there, and that's where some people, they put them out for them to pick them up, but then they set them out back. But quite honestly, I could drive down this city and I could pick out 3 or 4 dozen homes that I don't like the way that they keep the front of their house or the back of their house as well, because it's not my preference. But people have a right to live in their homes the way they want to. There's comments that it was going to be all vinyl homes. Not true at all. We're planning on doing rock, brick, and siding combination on all of these homes. The single car garage concern are all a bunch of little small homes with single car garages. About 10 to 15% of the houses which would be anywhere between 7 to 10 houses, would have single car garage. The rest of them are all double car garages. There was some concern or some comments about vibration and structural issues. Honestly, I don't even think that needs to be addressed. I sat down in the lot in my truck yesterday morning at 5:15 in the morning with the train going by in my truck with my window up. I recorded it. I could barely hear the train going by with the deal. And actually, if they're blowing the horn and the people in Reed Oaks across, I literally went to 2 or 3 of those houses, knocked on some people's doors and talked to them about the sound and did it affect them. And they said, no, the biggest concern to us is the blasting from the quarry. The train doesn't bother us at all. So that's one of those issues. HOA was a concern from people who spoke and said some things. There would be an HOA. It would be highly restrictive. There'd be no parking overnight on the streets. It would be just visitation parking. Everybody else would be in the back to keep that look. I mean, we want to have a nice place. It's not low-income housing. It's not even close to it. I'm sorry, if somebody here thinks that $300,000 to $400,000 home is low-income housing, you're doing really well, and you have a different perspective on life than I do. I don't consider that to be that way. I hope that I don't know, would you like us to show the other pictures of what we're looking at, the other 2?
If you would, please, sir.
And I'd like to address, I don't even know who it was. I wasn't turning around looking at everybody. Somebody commented about a developer who came and made some promises, and other developers who've come through the city and made promises, and they don't keep their promises. And I'm not one of them. I'm not one of them at all. And I can say that because I've lived in this city for 30 years. And I can say it because you can drive by the things that I've built in this city. I've built in other cities as well, but in this city, I've made commitments. The Club of Garden Ridge is an example. That place was getting ready to close. It was 45 days away from closing its door and putting plywood up on the windows. And they approached me and they said, would you help us? Will you save us? I went and sat with them. Long story short, I told them that I was going to do certain things. I went so far above and beyond what I did to save that club and keep it open and beautify that club and make it look beautiful and draw more people to it. And I kept my word on everything and above and beyond. And everything I've built here. So I ask that whoever was that said that, that you would understand that I'm not one of those developers and I can stand here in front of you because I know a lot of you. I keep my word. And I live here in this city, and I've lived here for 30 years. And I'm certainly not going to build something, and I actually own the corner that we have plans to develop retail in that area, and I'm certainly not going to hurt my own investment if this were to go forward and build something that looks horrible. Why would I do that? It doesn't even make sense. I don't understand the fear, quite honestly. I understand you want Garden Ridge to remain the same, but that's just not realistic. It's just not realistic. There are other people who would like to stay but don't want to stay in the current situation of a large square footage and a large yard. And these are very attractive. When I went to Dallas, these homes were gorgeous. I took pictures of them. They're on my phone if anybody wants to look at them after the meeting. And so I'm just going to petition and say this to the committee. You know what? If this goes through, I'm excited. I want to do it, and I think it will be a great addition to the city of Garden Ridge. If it doesn't go through, it doesn't go through. I'm not trying to force this down anybody's throat. I mean, I live here. I have a lot of friends in this city. I've tried to do good things for this city. I've never done anything I think that's bad for this city. So I'm asking that you would strongly consider it with realistic understanding of what I'm wanting to do and what my son and I want to do. We will build something that's attractive and people that would be proud of it. And the people across the street from Regency Oaks, look, that land is for sale. And by the way, I don't own that land right now. It's under contract. So I can walk away from this deal and all I lose is $500. So I'm just laying it out on the line for everybody in this room. I don't lose a whole lot. I don't own that land. It's under contract. I have an earnest money contract. I revealed that to the committee before. And I'm trying to, the reason why we have all of this down here is before I do make a large commitment, because it is a very expensive piece of property, I want to make sure, this is possible and I can make this happen. If it's not, I certainly don't want to buy a piece of land and go, now what do I do? Because if they don't sell it to me, they are going to sell it to someone else. And the options on that land right now would be retail right there in front, right across from Regency Oaks, and then behind it, it could be a number of things. Certainly not prettier than what I'm wanting to put up, because right now, I'm wanting to put up nice homes. I don't think that's low-income housing. And if anybody in this room does, gosh, you got a different opinion than I do. That's what I want to build. And so I ask that you just, after giving you the truth from all the speculation and quite honestly, some of the horrible things that were said on social media by people that drew conclusions before they knew the facts, I hope that this committee will look beyond that and listen to what I'm saying and look at my record and look at my reputation. Don't listen to speculation of things that people are just, coming to a conclusion without knowledge. I do thank you. I appreciate it, and I'm willing to answer any questions as we go through the meeting. I'm sure there will be lots of them, and I thank you for your time. And I appreciate people who come, and I respect people's differing opinions. Part of the problem with this world today is that we get angry with people because they differ with us. I'm not angry at you, anybody who stood up here and spoke. I respect that you have a different opinion, and I hope that we can still be kind to one another and still have different opinions. That's what God wants from us, and that's what I ask from each person here tonight. Now, I thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Overman. I got a little bit out of line, or excuse me, out of order with the agenda. I should have prefaced Mr. Overman coming up by having the city administrator explain and provide some information on the zoning of the property. One of the questions that came from the audience actually did speak to some zoning questions. City administrator.
Thank you, Chairman Miller. The property is slightly over 15 acres, and the frontage along 2252 and 300 feet into the property is currently zoned B1, which is Neighborhood Services. Neighborhood Services allows for single-family dwelling district to be located in that area. The remainder of the property is zoned B2, which is office and professional, and that zoning district as well allows for single-family dwelling district to be located in that area as well, in that zoning district as well. That is our current zoning ordinance.
Thank you, Ms. Kane. At this point in time, I have some notes that were passed to me by the city secretary because this is it's somewhat of a unique experience for the city in that we look at variances from time to time. We get onesies and twosies, okay? This time, we're getting a whole lot of variances all at one time, although they're all related and lead up to the garden homes. I do believe Mr. Oldman was honest in his rebuttal, if you will, to the comments. That's for you to decide. At this point in time, I'd like to hold a public hearing. By law, we have to have a public hearing. Excuse me. We're supposed to go through each one of the variances first. There are 14 of them. I've been instructed I don't have to read each one of them. Okay, I can summarize them, but I may in fact resort to reading enough of it that everybody gets the general idea. The first petition requests a variance to ordinance 13-122018 and pertains to garages. It's 5.1.2.4 and states simply that every house shall have at least a two-car garage, either attached or detached. That's what's in the ordinance now. And the petition requests at least a one-car garage. I think what we'll do is open it up to discussion for this variance by the commission. I have to remind the citizens that this is a working group. This is the only time we can really talk to each other. We haven't talked before about each one of these things. We heard it last month. We're not allowed by law to talk about it in between the meetings. We're not allowed to talk in the streets or anything else. So I have no idea, other than having worked with these people over the last several years, where they're leaning one way or the other. I also need to point out that I will be a part of the discussion, but as the chairman, I don't really have a vote. I only get a vote if there's a tie. Okay, so there's no undue influence on the committee by myself. My discussion counts the same as everybody else. I'm opening the floor to the commission for discussion of the first petition, which is for the garages. Does anybody want to lead off? I will need some kind of input so I know whether we're leaning approval or disapproval. You got to say something to me so we can move on to the next one.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment.
If you would, please.
I would like to maintain a requirement for two-car garages.
Please.
Yes, I see that the petitioner has requested a 1 and 2, and I understand that.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
Mike.
Here you go. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Chairman, I understand that the petitioner has requested a 1 and 2-car garage. Well, I understand his requirement for a 1-car for some, it's only like 10 houses or 10 cottages, however he's referring to them, would be placed in that area. But if you, to stay with the ordinance, I do support the 2-car garage at a minimum and not consider the 1-car. Thank you.
I'm getting a sign from my city administrator. We either got off track or we're doing something wrong. City administrator.
It's highly recommended that you conduct the public hearing before y'all just start discussing the different aspects of the variance request.
Okay, it's written down the way it should have been. I was in error to go and take it out of order. So at this time, we're going to have a public hearing. Again, it's an opportunity for the citizens to speak regarding this petition. There's no overall, speaking will be limited again to 3 minutes, but there's no overall time limit. There were only several people scheduled to talk before, so I didn't think the 20-minute time limit was necessary to be mentioned. But we will have a overall time limit. There is no overall time limit for this, so everybody gets 3 minutes. Anybody who wants to speak after hearing Mr. Overman's presentation, and come up, say your name and address, and please, there's a sheet we'll have for you to sign. Where's it going to be located? Over there. It's going to be over there at the table. So after you get finished speaking, please go and sign the sheet that's over there on the table. You did not have to sign up for this. This is the open meeting. We're starting the public hearing portion at 6:45 p.m. Does nobody wish to speak at the public hearing? Please just come up, please.
I just wanted to finish. I'm sorry that I didn't get finished. What I was leading up to is, my biggest concern is not necessarily about what's going on right now with this. This is a concern, but that it opens up, sets a precedent. And when I think about the sewer that's come in, and when I think about that this makes this more easy for this development to go in, the area I worry about the most is Monroe Wetz's property, which also is on the other side of the road. It's several hundred acres. I would hate for this to set a precedent, and then we end up with garden homes in great multitudes, which it could. Thank you. Yes.
Next, please.
Mark Househair, 20914 Misty Arbor. I came up here to speak because I provided comments to the city secretary, and I thought they were going to be disseminated to everybody, but I wanted my voice to be heard. I think Mr. Overman's trying to do something good for the city. We had a couple of people mention that you could get 9 homes on there at $500,000, that's $4.4 million. $300,000 home, 60 of them is $18 million, okay? So the money speaks for itself. It will help us with the taxes. The other thing is, it is a lot of variance requests. But that's what developers do. Let them figure it out, okay? Because garden homes are something that people need. I've got so many friends that moved away to try the garden homes or something smaller, and then they came back. We lived in a garden home for 7 years and came back. Our garden home was a half-acre lot, 2,500 square feet. So they make different sizes. But anyway, like Tony said, he's been here 30 years. He and I are not friends, but he's trying to do something good for the city. And the other thing is, garden homes are going to happen sooner or later. So anyway, thank you.
William Dawson again, 9613 Meadowroo. I believe it's on record that the builder stated that 7 to 10 of the homes would have 2-car garages. So the variance needs to be modified, I believe, if reapplied for, if there's going to be a discussion whether it's 1 and an attached, or 2, or just 1. Thank you.
My name is Lee Dorr. I live at 10009 Cali Circle, which is where Regency Oaks is located, right across the street. I'm not opposed to garden homes per se. I am worried that 70 homes will be on 15 acres. I did the math. It seems impossible to have alleys, streets, garages, parking places for guests other than in front of the houses, and to have 70 homes on that lot. I'm not in construction. I'm sure they're beautiful. I also went up to Cotton Crossing, and We drove around. Those houses, I'm not really sure how old they are. I'm thinking 5 or 6 years. I used to go up to Green a lot before COVID, and we drove through those neighborhoods when they were building. And the concept is great. I just think 70 homes is too much. And I'd like to see a little bit more space. Even though they're garden homes, I know they're supposed to touch each other. I just feel like we're cramming everything we can into that space, and I just don't think it'll be a good idea. And I'm kind of worried about, I don't know what grinder sewage is, so that's something that I don't know enough about. But I do know that everybody in this room had to learn what a septic tank was. So I'm just thinking there has to be something that he can explain to us. My biggest problem is I read all the variances he asked for, but we haven't heard the discussion on them. So I don't really know what'll be put forward that we'll go with or won't go with. And that's where I really need to learn and hear. So when it's discussed, maybe my opinion will be changed.
Thank you. Next.
Tony Frasco again. Okay, thanks. Tony Frasco again. I feel there's a need for development, but I don't want it to look like a monopoly board. You can't cram this all together. We have laws. Let's abide by the laws. We can do a variance for certain things, but not a list. We need the ground cover. We need all of this. We need 2-car garages. We have to keep Garden Ridge, Garden Ridge. That's why we moved here, because we loved it. And I don't want to learn to hate it and have to move again. I plan on dying here. So I hope you consider this, and I hope the developer sees that cramming these houses together, and I've seen garden homes, they have yards. You don't reach out the door and touch your neighbor's house. You don't hear your neighbor fighting with each other. You need space in between. That's what Garden Ridge is. It's space. It's a loving place to live. And that's what I hope and pray you take into consideration. Don't go for all these changes. I was a builder. If they could build on a postage stamp, they would. But that's not what Garden Ridge is. We need space. The whole idea of Garden Ridge is the natural beauty. And by doing this, cramming everything together, cutting side yards, cutting this, cutting that, you have the laws. Let's abide by the laws and keep Garden Ridge a beautiful place to live. Don't make people move out because we cram things in because of monetary reasons. Builders, and I'm not making any reference to this gentleman, but builders want to make money, which is right and just, but not to cram things in. I've seen garden homes. I looked at them before I bought in Garden Ridge, and there was space. There was a place for a dog to run. There was a fenced-in yard. There was a place for people to enjoy their yards. People enjoy it. Whether it's small or big, they enjoy the outdoors. So please take into consideration this. If they want to build, let them build to our recommendations. If they need a variance, then look at that, but not a list of variants. Then I might as well put a 2-family house up in my backyard. I'll come for a variance. I can use the money, you can use the money, everybody. But that's not the idea of Garden Ridge. Garden Ridge is a haven. Let's keep it a haven. And there's nothing against the builder, but I don't want these postage stamp houses where neighbors shake hands opening up the windows. Thank you very much.
Esther Twister, 9902 Catherine. I got a question. Maybe the lawyer can later on answer it. the HOA. So if it says in the HOA restriction is like 55 and up, can those be changed again? Say the homes don't sell down the road, or people don't like to live like too close to the like railroad tracks. Can the developer, and maybe like Mr. Owerman, will sell it in like 10 years? And I'm sure he has the best intention, and I do believe him that. But I would like to know, can the HOA be changed so that it goes from like 55 and up? That it's going to be changed to open for families, and that would change the entire purpose of garden homes. So that's a question that I have. And again, I'm not opposed to garden homes. I think it's a great idea, and we'd be the first one to buy one. It's just the lots bigger and the homes a little bigger, so it fits better into Garden Ridge.
Hello, I'm Bob Dorr. I live at 10009 Cali Circle in Regency Oaks. I just have a couple quick comments. I'm just wondering why some of these variances are even there. What's the motivation behind only having a one-car garage? Certainly, if you had a two-car garage, all you do is add value to the house, get more storage, probably be a better price for it. What's the value of only having a 4-foot fence instead of a 6-foot fence? What's the value of having a 4,000 square foot lot versus a 6,000 square foot lot? It just seems like a lot of these, like why rock, vinyl, and siding? Why not just rock and siding, or stone or brick and siding? What are we doing by adding the other alternatives, which may actually lower the value of the house? I mean, it's an economic decision, but I would think a few less houses at a higher price would be a better neighborhood than 70, with some of them being built a little smaller, one-car garage, smaller walls, and small lots. Just seems common sense that there's a difference between the Walmart model of putting a lot of stuff in there and a higher quality and doing less. Thank you.
Hold on just a minute. Stan? Thank you.
My name is Lily Hauser, and I live at 20914 Misty Arbor. I'd like to bring a woman's perspective to this too. Garden homes can be very attractive, and believe me, people, they're not cheap. We've lived here in the Garden Ridge area 25 years. Originally, we lived here 13 years, moved away because we downsized in family, thought we needed a smaller lot, and we did at the time. We moved back because we lived in a garden home 7 years and moved back 5 years ago. And we moved back because our needs changed. We're getting older. We like smaller lots. We don't like the work that large lots require. And at this time, we do have different needs. I think everybody's needs will change too at different times in their lifetimes. So I just want to say that I do welcome garden homes moving in. And I think the quality of it and what people will like will depend a lot on the builder, the developer, and the HOA. And I think what people need to understand is that HOAs are dependent on the people that live in those houses. They will have the power at some point in time to make changes if they want to the HOA. And so, they're a nice place to live in, and they're not cheap. So I don't think the values of your current house will go down if the developer builds good quality homes to begin with. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, can you all hear me just fine? My name's Todd Hill, and I live at 19870 Bat Cave Road, and I've lived here exactly 2 months. So I'm probably the newbie here. We buy here for what Garden Ridge has to offer today. We found exactly what we were looking for: the distance to work, the schools, the size of the lots, the beauty of the area, the quaintness and quietness of the area, and frankly, we want it to stay the same way it is, just like I've heard many other people say. That being said, before I came, in the last few days, I took the chance to look into the Overmans, and they are wonderful people. They've done a lot of wonderful things around the country, and I would imagine maybe even places further than, outside the country. And they've done wonderful things for the city. I know several of the buildings that they've built on 2252 and the club and several other things. So I don't doubt that he does a good job. The problem that I see is I want, like I've heard today, Garden Ridge to stay Garden Ridge. For my calculations, the density is going to increase 9 times from what it is. So the density in that particular area would be 9 times what the typical density is for Garden Ridge. When it comes to the variances, I won't go into them one by one, but we all can see that he asks for one thing, but he asks the variance to be so much different. And so that was my concern. Like he says, I'm going to build, I don't want to take one out, for instance. They're all similar. So the front yard, setback of 45 feet, but the petition requests 15 feet. And every one of them is the same way. What's this huge disparity? If you want to do this, get the variance for what you want to do, not the variance for what, don't tell us what you want to do and then get the variance for something that's much less. Yeah, when I lived in Colorado Springs, there was a group of garden homes that went in, and it was very sought after. A lot of people wanted it, and it was great for the first 5 or 10 years until a few people started moving in, a few people started renting the places, and then people start to move out because they don't like the way the neighborhood's going. It happens. I've seen it happen firsthand only 2 blocks away from where I lived in Colorado Springs. I think the impact studies are extremely important. I think we need to do an impact on the school, economic impact. The impact studies obviously should be done prior to any decision being made. And then I just want to say one more thing very important. First of all, the ordinances would have to be changed for several things. But then, I live on a 3-acre property. According to this, I would be able to put 14 of his houses on my property.
Sir?
That's just absolutely ridiculous. 14 of those houses on my property wouldn't work.
Do I have anybody else? Okay.
My name's Dave Pensack. I live at 19710 Secret Cove in Garden Ridge. I've lived here for 8 years. I'm a home builder in Garden Ridge, and I own the property that I'm under contract with Mr. Overman on. I came before this committee before trying to build some storage warehouses there. We were turned down on that. I think there were a lot of fear associated with it. Went to Schertz, spent $165,000 in impact fees and built warehouses there. The city benefited from it. And if you were to drive by it now, I think everybody that had fears associated with it, they would go away if they looked at my project. I think there's some same fears here that people have because it's different. So I built it the complete opposite spectrum. My homes are $1 to $1.3 million in Garden Ridge. I know what quality is. I've known Mr. Overman for 8 years. I know he's going to build something quality there. I'm just suggesting y'all work with him. The council works with him to figure out something, and the people work together to figure out what'll work. Because you've heard Nancy say how it's zoned right now. Okay, as y'all probably know, the governor passed a law where a city no longer has control over what the exterior building looks like. I think I would trust selling the land to Tony over to another developer that can come in and do whatever he wants. It can look like Bracken if you want it to. So it's really, bottom line, what is the choice you want for the city? The retail on that property is going to be second-tier retail compared to Tony's land. CVS is not going to go on my property. Second-tier people will go on my property. Those turn over 2 to 3 years, just like Bracken turns over 2 to 3 years. To me, I thought it was look, you don't want warehouses, you don't want small homes, then you're going to get retail. So I'm just saying everybody should work together to figure it out. Because it's just, you get two people on two sides of the page, they don't come together and make it work. And I'm going to sell the property. I bought it for an investment. I bought it as a commercial property. I can sell it as a commercial property without anybody changing as it is now and do what I want to do. I just think this is the best solution for it, other than retail parked right in front of their neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Don't forget to sign in, please.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm PK Fritz. I live at 8927 Garden Ridge Drive. My husband and I are longtime residents of Garden Ridge. We're definitely in the age category that probably should be looking to live in a garden patio home, but we're not. We've been here over 36 years. We could benefit from a garden home with less upkeep, but not to the detriment of the rest of the Garden Ridge area. Absolutely not. We would not want to do this. We want to say, let's do this the right way. And our concern, and I hope I'm not using wrong language here, but our concern is when you're talking about the city taking over the expense of wastewater development and so forth, that's the same as subsidizing the developer and the builder so that they don't have to pay for that. The city would have to pay for that. And then in order, since we still could use some more tax revenues out here, that means eventually probably you all would need to come to us for a higher tax rate. I don't know how many people here that are in person tonight were out here the last time we went through one of these garden home pushes for development, or are aware that the minimum square footage on that project that was voted down, minimum square footage was 2,000 square feet. It was 3/4% brick, just like all the other homes here in Garden Ridge, and it was standing metal seam roofs. There was no mention of siding. There's no mention even in the presentation that was sent out to people how much siding there was going to be on the house or what kind. We think the minimum square footage requirement ought to be a minimum of 1,800 square feet, preferably the 2,000 that was before. And there's nothing in there about whether the garages are definitely going to be detached or attached. If they're detached and you have to get out of your car, out of the garage, to get into your yard and then get into your house, that increases your chance and decreases the safety situation, getting from there to your house. A big point that we're objecting to is that there should be no joint access from residential to commercial area at any time. That's just really going to screw up the traffic for the residential area. If people want to go to the commercial, make a separate area. If they want to go in there and shop, fine, go in and shop that entrance. But don't make it so that people that are coming in from out of the area, out of town, out of state, whatever the case may be, can drive from there on in through the residential area, because it's going to end up costing the city more money because you're going to have to hire additional policemen and fire protection because of that. And I'm just concerned about the change. Like I said, we could benefit from a garden patio home.
Ms. Fritz?
The best thing for the area.
Ms. Fritz, your time is up. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Carmen Soto. I live at 19459 Arrowwood Place. I know Tony Overman. I actually office in one of the complexes that he owns. I have a lot of respect for him. I think he does a great product. He puts a lot of effort and he does wonderful things. However, personally, I am afraid of what will happen when we accept so many variances. I think that there are some specifically, I am opposed to the square footage of the homes being dropped to such a small number. We can still build garden homes on larger lots. We've seen them across the country. A couple of people even mentioned them today. Impervious cover. I mean, that's part of our beauty as a city. I think we need to protect that. And I know Tony mentioned earlier, I'm also a real estate broker, that 300,000 is not low-income housing. He is 100% correct. However, in the city of Garden Ridge, our average home sale right now in the last 6 months has been double that. So you can see the fear that comes across residents like ourselves who have worked so hard to get into a community as beautiful as Garden Ridge, to have that taken away. And so I am hopeful that we can work with Mr. Overman to develop something that makes more sense. The lots need to be bigger. There needs to be some better plans on the sewage. There needs to be, I mean, I can't put in a vinyl fence. Why would we consider that? And yes, I know that will impact the price, but it also impacts the price of my home and my improvements when I do that. And I think that everyone has an opinion here, and we're just scared. When you put this project in front of us, we know what could happen, and that is very scary when we're accepting properties half the value of what we're doing right now. Right now, the average days on market for Garden Ridge is 60 days. We are not desperate. We're valuable right now, and I want to keep it that way. Thank you.
Do we have anybody else?
Hi, Rick Ross, 20637 Wall Lane in Trophy Oaks. I support the idea of garden homes. A lot of people here have been complaining about their small lots, small homes, you're right next to your neighbor. Well, yeah, that's what a garden home is. And a lot of people want that. I know my mom is in a retirement community in San Marcos, and it's a 1/10 of an acre lot, and she's getting tired of taking care of that smaller lot. She wants something smaller. Garden home is a great idea for that. I believe a couple of years ago, we were discussing the master plan that was created for us, and in that master plan was the garden home type concept for residents here, people that wanted to remain in Garden Ridge because they like Garden Ridge, but they just couldn't maintain a 3/4 acre or larger lot. This gives them the opportunity to remain in Garden Ridge in a smaller, easier to maintain lot. I like the idea that the homes are at least $300,000. That keeps a riffraff out like me. But if we could get a commitment to that, if that is somehow a guarantee that plans won't change later on. I like the idea that there's a homeowner association. I think they do good things for neighborhoods. They help to keep the place up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Hi, Carolyn Collins, 9920 Michelle Hill again. So first of all, I want to thank Mr. Overman for everything he's done in the community. It sounds like he's done great work across the community, and anything that brings value to a community is always greatly appreciated. However, I do recommend that he continue to seek value-added opportunities for the community that are within the current ordinances of the community. I do not think that the Garden Ridge Planning and Zoning Commission should look at opening Pandora's box by approving over a dozen variances to our ordinance. And again, this will allow not only this developer, but future developers to seek more of the same from Garden Ridge, as has been mentioned before. And again, I think we are setting the conditions for a permanent redo of our ordinances. And so I'd like to know what the Planning and Zoning Commission sees for the future of current subdivisions and HOAs. Obviously, with this development, I know it was mentioned that vinyl wouldn't be used in that. However, all those details are in the request for the variance, so it leaves it open. Usually a developer kind of sets the conditions for the HOA as they are building that way forward, so we have not seen that, to what effect and what standard that HOA would include. And I did hear, obviously the mention of the revenue of $18 million. However, again, there's no studies to look at the long-term impacts to current property values, how that will change, how much would have to be made up by this new revenue, future subsidies, as we talked about, for the sewage. Are we going to have to widen the 2252 in different areas? Will that impact subdivisions and others as we look at future developments within Garden Ridge and changes to our ordinances? I do think this is a concern. I know currently on 2252, as I try to leave Garden Ridge, Regency Oaks, many times there's a backup there because of 35 and other requirements where personnel from New Braunfels use it as a thorough way through the community. And they're not the only ones, but if you put that many homes right there by a major intersection, that's only going to exacerbate the problem. There's been no discussion of bringing in school buses in and out of the area or any other impacts of having a community of that size sitting right off of two major thoroughfares through our city. So I'd ask those to be considered with the planning and zoning. But again, I think we need the time to do the in-depth studies of the impact of this consideration and opening the door for obviously, if you approve it for this developer, I don't see where we have any stance to deny a future developer same requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Jackie Collins, and I live at 8835 Garden Ridge Drive. And I've been a resident for 27 years. And I am in support of garden homes. And interestingly enough, I think as all long-term residents, my family situation dynamics have changed over the years, and now I would like to downsize. However, I don't really want to downsize into an apartment. And the size of your homes are not much larger than some apartments, and particularly when there's a one-car garage. I don't know anyone really that has only one car. And so I would like to ask you to consider these garden homes, but really look at these variances. I'd like you to look at the size of the homes and the number of the homes. Perhaps reduce the number of homes and make them larger to accommodate those of us that would not like to move into an apartment-size home and two-car garages. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anybody else?
I'm Ron Nagel. I live in Park Lane Court. I keep hearing them talk about HOAs, homeowners associations, as the savior for this project to make sure that it stays on track once it's set up. But I guarantee you that that's not the case. It's not going to work that way. Park Lane Estates, once upon a time, had a homeowners association. We don't anymore, and it shows. I also used to live in Fox Run before I moved out here. And we had a Gestapo down there of an HOA. And they made sure everybody towed the line. And it was good. It kept everybody in order. But once the guy that was running that show died, the HOA went away. One more thing I'd like to add about this is I am concerned about the density of the housing that's being put in. And I don't know whether there's been an impact study for the aquifer because of the amount of concrete and building structures that are going in there. Does that affect it? Is that going to be a long-term problem? I don't know. Nobody's said anything about that. It's not come up. So there needs to be an environmental study on this thing. And finally, if people want to live in a garden home, they need to move to Windcrest.
Does anybody else want to comment?
Kurt Carter, 21911 Paseo Cordo. I just wanted to say again, or not say again, but to tell Mr. Overman, I have a lot of respect for him. I don't doubt that he has very good intentions for the city, and that's been proven in the past by the things that he's done. My only concern here, and the question that I think we need to ask everyone, is what do we want Garden Ridge to be? What kind of city do we want to be? And so far, over Garden Ridge's history, we've been generally a residential community that had a requirement that people from all over San Antonio and other places liked Garden Ridge because they had a requirement that you had to build on a 3/4 acre minimum lot. What's being proposed may not be bad, but it will change that. And it's going to change it in a way that might not be at first glance to the best for our city and its future if we want to keep the same aesthetic that we currently have. There are concerns. People are concerned about property values. People say that, well, that's a baseless concern. But yet when you have the population density based on garden homes and you populate that more across the whole city, the average property value will go down. It's a mathematical equation. So I do think that that's not an unfounded concern, and it's not one that's baseless. And I think that this commission and the city, whenever they make a decision, however they make it, they need to really ask themselves, what do the citizens of Garden Ridge want their community to be? And if we wanted a community like others that are surrounding us, then that's great. But at least do it up front and have the city take ownership of it and make legal changes to our current laws and ordinances that would allow it, and not ask somebody to take their time and their money and their effort to go plan a community and then try to come request it, that it's permitted. Have the city take ownership and tell the citizens of Garden Ridge that this is what we want Garden Ridge to be, and make changes that would allow that to happen without making builders and developers come beg for variances only to find a room full of citizens that don't believe that that's the Garden Ridge that they want. Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to speak at the public hearing?
My name is Amy Friedman, and I live at 9908 Catherine Glen, and I have the house directly across from where the garden homes are looking to be built. And I'm not against the garden homes. I would like to see maybe less than 65 or 70 homes in there where there's more space. Because I wish the driving range was still there, to be honest, but it's not. So something is going to go in there at some point in time, and just like Mr. Overman said, it can be something beautiful, or it can be something that we really don't want. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Terry Jetter. I live at 20839 FM 3009, so I live on the busy street. My question is the infrastructure. Is he going to pay for the infrastructure? Are we? I don't know of water, the well, the sewer. I know on my 3 acres, I'm responsible with all those houses. Who's going to be responsible? Because the city does not have a sewer department. So are we creating a new department to take care of these houses? What's the answer to that question? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Now, along these same lines, the city, there was an opportunity for citizens to respond by email to the city to state their opinion. The city secretary, I asked her, did she have a number for or against, and she said no. The plan is to read all these responses. And so here we are to read some of the responses. Ms. Spencer, if you would, please.
Thank you, Dr. Miller, and the commission. We received many responses today, and to make sure that all of the citizens that provided their comments in writing to the city, I am going to read them. You should also each have a copy in front of you. First one is from Mark Hoshier, 20914 Misty Arbor. I support a garden home development in Garden Ridge. 5124 garages. Keep the 2-car garage minimum, deny the 1-car garage request. Impervious cover, keep the impervious cover standard not to exceed 35%. Lot size, deny the petition for 4,400 square feet lot size. I would propose a minimum lot size of 8,000 square feet as long as the lots are on city sewer. Lot width, I am okay with the petition request. Front yard, I am okay with the petition request. Side yards, corner lots, I am okay with the petition request. Side yards, interior lots, I am okay with the petition request. Rear yard, I am okay with the petition request. House size, I am okay with the petition request. Fences, deny the petition. I do not have a favorable opinion for 4-foot vinyl fences. 8-4-11 fences, deny the petition. I do not have a favorable opinion for 4-foot vinyl fences. Appendix 2, sign regulations. I am okay with the petition request. Article 1, Section 3, definitions. A, alley, deny the petition. I do not want the primary access to residences from an alley instead of a street. Section 7, standards and specifications. B, streets, 10A, deny the petition, keep the standards the same. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments. Dawn and David Hatch, 8377 Twisted Oaks. The terms upscale keeps being mentioned. The builder wants 14 variances for this project. One of the variances being for vinyl fences. Vinyl fades and cracks over time. There is nothing upscale about vinyl. The lot and structure sizes are small and crowded. The houses that he wants to put on the lots don't seem to be much bigger than a large double-wide mobile home. How much water does this development anticipate to consume? One variance is for a 1-car garage, so naturally there will be parking on the streets, or is there an assumption by the builder that the residents that live there will only have 1 car? P&Z does not have enough time with only 1 meeting to discuss 14 variances. The last time this issue came up took about a year or longer to develop the concept of garden home requirements. Were these requirements ever adopted? If so, are they still enforced? Were they annulled or conveniently forgotten? Why is a project of this magnitude being forced at such an accelerated pace? P&Z and citizens are not being given enough time to analyze this issue. Both of us do not like the way this entire process is being handled. And as a side note, both of us have noticed that one of the council members, Todd Arvidsson, has liked several pro-development comments on Nextdoor. It is our opinion that he has signaled through liking these pro-development comments his intent to vote for the variances. This intent is ahead of any P&Z's recommendation or citizens' comments at the upcoming 2 meetings. He should refrain from any type of communication on any social media sites. William Dawson, 9613 Meadowroo. Garages. Without proper garage space, the street and later named alley access will be overly populated, creating safety and property damage concerns. Hit and run. See Section 7 variance for street width. Impervious cover. Without knowing the footprint of the planned garden home, it is difficult to determine the impact of impervious cover or its ground cover. The garden home should stand to the same restriction we have in the city. Lot size. 4,400 square foot is 10 houses to the acre, a virtual visual nightmare. Lot width. 40 and 28 foot frontages. Let me build a picture. Lot size, 4,400 square foot, of which 3,300 square foot will be impervious cover, leaving 1,100 square foot for landscape, or 20 by 55 feet for borders around the garden home, or 10-foot separation from property line. Sounds like zero property line living. Looking in neighbors' window fences to separate homes, etc. Ugly. Front yard. See above and 15 feet leaves all 40 in back. Side yards. 15 feet. So 30 feet of 40-foot frontage leaves a 10-foot wide house. Really. House size, not sure how you would make a 1,600 square foot house fit with all previously stated offset front, rear, and side. Fences, vinyl, turns green, mold, grass, weed, eat residue. Essential third world plastic. Nothing I read brings in acre feet of water per residence. So this project threatens my future water use and cost. Yes, city owns the water company, sweet. Eric Lamberson, 22118 Cristobal Drive. I am absolutely opposed to granting the variances requested in the 082020 Notice of Public Hearings, PZ and CC for overrun properties. Louis Van de Mark, 21942 Paseo Corto. Good morning, and I trust all is well with you. I am sure you are getting a great deal of emails and queries on this subject. While I am not on either side, approve/disapprove, I am on the side of making the best decision for our community. I believe this concept was part of the master plan shared a couple of years back. However, when searching the website, it still shows only a draft, and the level of density can be hard to discern. If this proposal goes forward, I believe it would be appropriate to share with the community the planned concept/specifics of this improvement prior to council approval, layout, restrictions, target audience, etc. By doing so, this would remove much of the angst that is on social media and being shared within the community. Davenport High School did an exceptional job with this as they were coming into the community. They shared what to expect, how they would be a good neighbor, etc. While there were still doubters, at least we are all on the same page. I do realize that at the high school is not within the city limits. All the more kudos to them. We elect and need to trust our elected officials, but communication is always important, especially in a small community. I am proud that Garden Ridge remains a way of life, not just a place to live. I am appreciative to be able to provide my thoughts and trusting that our city leaders have and will make the best decisions for the community overall. Jeff Strantz, 21349 Forest Water Circle. After a very modest review of the proposed garden home community at/near 3009 and 2252, I do not feel it will represent the community of Garden Ridge favorably. This community prides itself on being off the beaten path. By allowing these garden homes, you are compromising the very standards this city was created and established upon. Why? These standards are the very reason most, if not all, residents chose Garden Ridge as their home. I'm not opposed to growing as a community, as growth is inevitable. I absolutely love the addition of a new junior high and high school. Maybe not the location of the new high school, but it's clearly too late to argue that point. These schools now allow younger families to come in and enjoy our beautiful city. However, I feel strongly that our growth should reflect our past successes. To me, allowing these garden homes creates a shortcut/backdoor to home ownership in our beautiful city. I don't want it to be easy or prohibitive. I'd like it to simply be more of the status quo. Why are we changing the recipe? Janice Gail Petra, 22023 Deer Canyon Drive. I am opposed to the variances Mr. Overman is requesting in order to build 65 to 70 garden homes in Garden Ridge. It is unfair to the citizens of Garden Ridge not to be given the right to vote on this proposal. Let the citizens be given the opportunity to cast their votes. Curtis and Sherry Carter, 21911 Paseo Corto. To whom it may concern, my wife Sherry and I have been Garden Ridge residents since July 2007. We chose to live in this city because of the spacious lots and its small town feel. It was and still does feel like living in the country, but I'm afraid that could all change very quickly if the Overman requests are granted. We do not support the building of garden homes with the reduced lot size, square footage reductions, and street size variances, and we do not support the rezoning of the property that would need to occur. We respectfully ask the Garden Ridge Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council deny the Overman request. Doing otherwise would potentially set a legal precedent, opening a Pandora's box that will change the wonderful nature of our city forever. Once that box is opened, we will not be able to close it. We can only hope that you will not be led by dollar signs, but by your heart and good senses. Do what is right for the citizens who currently call Garden Ridge home. Citizens who had a choice and chose to buy property in a city that rejected postage stamp-sized lots and provided some elbow room with a country feel. Please deny the Overman request. Vince and Sylvia Guerrero, 9215 Bluebell Drive. Good afternoon. My husband and I would like to address this email to all commissioners of the Planning and Zoning meeting that will take place tonight, August 11, 2020. We would like to express our personal opinion about the request to build garden homes in our beautiful city. We definitely oppose to such request. The main reason we moved here 20 plus years ago was because of the serenity life living, lot and home sizes, and of course the feeling of country living. We know if these small homes are to be built, Garden Ridge will never be the same and will turn into just another regular community. Not to mention the traffic, decrease in home values, shortage of water, etc., etc. We are respectfully asking you to please deny the request of Overman Properties. Erica Rodriguez, 9328 Blazing Star Trail. I am okay with garden homes here in Garden Ridge, but in the right location and the right plans. That location near those railroads will just put those properties go down in value, as prospective buyers will not want to pay a good amount of money to be near those tracks and noise. Those homes will have to be sold at a very low price. No one wants their home to be in front of a major traffic road either, unless the home is sold at a low price. We'll have to have an HOA to make sure all the owners take care of those homes, especially if they will turn around and lease them. They will become tenant-occupied homes because owners will have trouble selling them. Dexter and Catherine, I don't know how to say their last name, I apologize, but I'm gonna try my hardest.
It's Kokenhauer.
Kokenhauer, is that right?
Yes.
Oh, okay, perfect. 9392 Garden Ridge Drive. Garden Ridge City Council Committee Planning and Zoning. We have been Garden Ridge residents since 1987 and wish to make it known that we are opposed to granting variances for the purpose of building garden homes that have a one-car garage at the corner of 3009 and FM 2252. We do not support the building of garden homes with their reduced lot size, square footage reductions, and street size variances, and we do not support the rezoning of the property that would need to occur. It has been my understanding that this property would be developed commercially, thus providing goods and services for this community. We feel the type and size of homes planned would require too many exceptions and reduce the property value of homes in the nearby area. Please keep in mind past decisions and negative repercussions that develop, such as the number of complaints that are constant and time-consuming about homes near the quarry and the frequent blasts, most notably at 11:30 to 11:45 a.m. How many times a day does a train go by that area? Would there be similar complaints about the train? Why go into that area with lower cost housing when you are fully aware of the noise problem? It seems it would be taking advantage of buyers who want this location, but not in the best interest of the new buyers or current residents. We respectfully ask the Garden Ridge Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council deny the Overman request. Amy Harold Larimore and Jason Larimore, 9315 Sumac Lane. My husband and I do not support the current plan of garden homes. Martha Stitt, 21007 Cedar Branch. Good afternoon. I understand Mr. Overman is asking for 14 zoning variances in order to build 65 to 70 garden homes off of FM 2252. I am concerned with several issues. First, this will set a precedent in our city that will dramatically change the city's character. We are a city set up to have a rural type of environment with lots at least half an acre in size. Secondly, the timing of such an important decision by the city comes while we are in the middle of a pandemic, which keeps many of us from attending meetings on this subject in person. This decision needs to be tabled for now. Why the rush? These homes cannot be built until water and sewer service is available on 2252. And thirdly, there are concerns about the type and quality of the homes Mr. Overman is proposing. His proposal does not meet the high-end custom home character of our city. I suggest some of the variances Mr. Overman is seeking not be granted. Those variances allowing for architectural changes, lower building standards, and aesthetics that differ from the rest of the city should be denied. The garden home community Mr. Overman mentioned in green has an architectural style that is fitting with craftsman homes built in New Braunfels. That style is out of character in Garden Ridge. How about a more ranch or Texas country style look? The look of the club in Forest Waters, which Mr. Overman owns, would be more appropriate. The proposed garden homes also need 2-car garages with much wider alleys to accommodate cars. The streets should also be the standard size of all streets in the city. People have at least 2 cars. They will have to park them someplace. Some garden home neighborhoods even have parking space at the entrance to allow for visitor parking. The development should be gated and maintained by an HOA that can make sure the alleys will remain neat and that the street is not lined with cars. All fencing should conform to fencing in the rest of the city, absolutely no vinyl fencing. If garden homes are to be built, they must be built in an upscale manner in character with the rest of Garden Ridge. Additionally, from Martha Stitt, please look at the poll and comments on Nextdoor concerning the proposed Overman Properties garden home development. It has been up only a day. As of 3 p.m. Tuesday, August 11th, 69% of the responses are against this garden home development. 25% of the responses are in favor of the project. 6% of the responses have no opinion. It appears that the vast majority in Garden Ridge are still against garden homes, as they have been since the city was incorporated. Cindy and Joe Rosales, 21022 Plum Ranch Road. Dear members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, my name is Cindy Rosales. I would much rather prefer to be in attendance at tonight's meeting, but due to COVID, my husband and I avoid public gatherings. I lost my sweet mother a month ago to COVID-19, so our family is intimately aware of the frightening impact of this horrible virus. Please accept this memo as our public comments regarding the Overman variance request that you will be considering this evening, August 11th, 2020. My husband and I moved to our dream home 11 years ago. When I was a young bride and my husband starting his military career, I learned that there was a shortcut to get to Garden Ridge Pottery if I drove through the city of Garden Ridge. I vividly recall the beauty of this very scenic drive through this little community. I loved the trees, the deer, the large spacious homes. I remember saying to myself, one day we will live here. More than 30 years later, we achieved our dream and bought our lovely dream home on Plum Ranch Road. For the first year or so, every time I drove into our driveway, I would say, hello, beautiful. We are proud Garden Ridge homeowners. We have poured tens of thousands of dollars into improving our home. We truly have built our own little paradise. My husband and I have great concerns about what would happen to our lovely community and property value of our home if the P&Z Commission approves the 14 variances requested by Overman Properties. Approval of the Overman Properties 14 variances request to build garden homes will negatively and forever change the look and feel of our lovely community. We are not against development, we are against wrong development. Development that is rushed, ill thought out, and that will negatively impact our community. The citizens of Garden Ridge selected this lovely community for a reason. Supporting Overman Properties variance request would be in direct contrast as to why we chose to live in Garden Ridge. Garden homes, at least the garden homes presented, do not belong in this community. Over the past year, I have watched our property value climb month over month. Our home is one of the largest investments in our portfolio. We will be retiring soon. Protecting one of our most important assets is very important to us. I sincerely hope that the Planning and Zoning Commission will deny the request to Overman Properties. Marion Sterling, 9006 Cinnabar Court. Mayor and Council, I would like to voice my opinion on the proposed garden homes for Garden Ridge. It is not stated anywhere that they will be for 55 plus people with appropriate rules and regulations that would go with the community as such. Having garden homes in Garden Ridge of the size proposed would be a detriment to our community and our property values. If Mr. Oberman's variances are granted, the look of Garden Ridge will change forever, since homes will be small, lots very small, one-car garages, and alleys. Why is this not being presented to the residents for a vote? You gathered opinions on the deer. It seems like this is something that has been in the works for a long time, and it is being sprung on us now. And just 2 days from now, you are going to vote on this. What is the hurry? Why isn't this being presented to the residents in an open forum? Please consider the timeline on this and survey the residents. Thank you. Richard Fritz, 8927 Garden Ridge Drive. I planned to attend the meeting tonight, but I have had second thoughts. My wife and I are both in the 2 high-risk groups, age and underlying medical conditions, for COVID-19. I expect many Garden Ridge residents are in one or both of these groups. CDC guidelines advise avoiding large groups, more than 10, especially in closed areas. If I came tonight and found a group of residents plus council member plus staff, I would be forced not to attend because of safety. At that point, it would be too late to submit comments. I think this meeting is very important because the outcome could determine the character of Garden Ridge in the future. As a 36-year resident of Garden Ridge, I believe consideration of this issue should be postponed until the COVID-19 is eliminated or at least minimized. That way, community participation could be maximized. By the way, isn't this just another attempt to build garden homes in Garden Ridge? The previous 2 proposals provided much more information, detailed plans and justification, and were still soundly defeated. My comments are below. The city should not pay for a wastewater system. The developer and/or the HOA should pay for the initial cost and maintenance of the system. Garden Ridge residents should not have their taxes raised to underwrite this development. What is the initial and ongoing cost we are being asked to pay? Shouldn't this be known before we even consider this issue? The masonry requirement of the homes must meet Garden Ridge codes. Letting the HOA decide is problematic. In the first place, the HOA will not even exist when initial construction begins, which means the developer will make the decision. The developer already specifies different colors of siding. Once some homes are built with little masonry, the HOA will not increase the requirement, which could put earlier built homes out of code. What is the requirement for roofing? Will it meet Garden Ridge codes? Street and parking are also issues. All streets must be wide enough to accommodate 3 vehicles across. If on-street parking is allowed during some daylight hours, any street with less width would require vehicles to take turns passing parked vehicles when vehicles are coming from both directions. I assume the garages will be for 2 vehicles. Where does the 3rd vehicle park? Not every household will be empty nesters. Driving-age children or overnight guests would need a place to park. Also realize there will be commercial vehicles, mail, FedEx, UPS, repair/maintenance, contractors, etc., needing to park. Will the garages be attached or detached? Impervious cover is a major environmental concern in the Edwards Aquifer area. The total area is 15.214 acres with 65 to 70 homes, 1,600 to 2,200 square feet, garages, 2-car, wide paved streets, rear driveways, sidewalks, alleyways, etc. There would be very little green space left. Has anyone done a study on environmental impact? Boundaries. At least 8 units are adjacent to the active railroad line and some will be adjacent to the Overman commercial development. Both of these conditions will degrade the entire development. Having home back to a convenience store or an active railroad track will not be attractive to buyers. The second entrance/exit to the Overman commercial properties will be convenient for Overman's business, but will increase traffic into the development and degrade resident security. What are the price ranges for the garden homes? With smaller homes and lots, the prices could be well below the average price of existing Garden Ridge home. This could have a negative effect on the value of existing Garden Ridge homes. Why weren't price ranges provided? City services, water for additional households, more police, increased street maintenance. 65 to 70 new households would increase already bad traffic. Has there been a study on the impact? As you can see, there are many unanswered questions and some real concerns. It looks like this proposal was hastily submitted during the COVID-19 crisis in the hope that community input would be stifled. Once again, I recommend this proposal be postponed until we can get more specifics from the developer and ensure all residents are comfortable to attend an in-person meeting. Marilyn Cochran, 9545 Goldenrod. My husband, Bork, and I are opposed to the granting of the 14 variances to build garden homes at 19870 FM 2252. Steve Hatley, 22117 Paseo Corto Drive. P&Z board members, I do not support the changing of variances in ordinance number 13-122018 that the builder is seeking in order to build high-density garden-style homes in Garden Ridge. Garden Ridge has always been about having good-sized homes on good-sized lots. That is what makes our subdivision so attractive to many. I believe the majority of Garden Ridge residents like myself addressed our concerns on high-density house sitting when providing input into the master plan a few years back. My input has not changed from then to now. I still say no to high-density homes subdivisions. Thank you. John Petro, 22023 Deer Canyon Drive. I am against the variances requested in Mr. Overman's proposal. Too many homes in too small an area. Using alleys for access encourages unsightly trash. One-car garages encourages parking on the street, which should also be prohibited at night. Just a few of my concerns. Thank you. Lisa Richter, 9241 Garden Ridge Drive. Hello, I'd like to submit comments to be read at the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council meetings / public hearings for tonight and Thursday. I read through it several times and came in under 2 minutes, so hopefully it's concise enough. Garden Ridge is not suited to development of garden homes. Nearly 50 years of our city's history have been spent restricting this type of development, and for good reasons. First, the Trinity will not be a reliable source of water for our city in the coming decades, especially with higher density residences. Past water studies have shown that we are so close to the bad water line, and development higher up on the aquifer will further restrict our water supply. Second, these small properties will adversely affect our property values, along with the lower end elements of vinyl fencing, single car garages, and alleyways. Third, they will abut a railroad track. Regardless of initial pricing, their value will quickly drop because nobody wants to live by a railroad track, and vibration from the trains will cause structural issues with the homes. Fourth, the construction of a sewer line should not be an expense for the citizens to bear for this development. The tax burden will fall on the current property owners as our land and homes have more value than these small properties. How long will it take taxes on these properties to repay their tax burden? Is the developer paying for all of the infrastructure? They should. Fifth, is it unreasonable to request so many variances? It sets a dangerous precedent for the city when we start approving a dozen plus variances on one development. The next developer comes in to build an adult business or hotel or apartments. We deny those variances and the city will be setting itself up for a lawsuit. This should be voted on by the citizens to allow us to determine how we want to shape our city's future. In summary, these garden homes do not fit into Garden Ridge. The requested variances set a very dangerous precedent for the city and will open the door to development that none of us want. Please do not approve these variances and instead preserve the way of life we currently have in Garden Ridge. Mary Ruthman, 9450 Cinchona Trail. I'm very concerned at the rush of approval for the building of said garden homes. Mr. Overman uses the word upscale. I question that with the 12 to 14 variances he is asking for. It appears to me this proposed project goes against the master plan for Garden Ridge. Slow down. The residents deserve the opportunity to voice their opinion, especially those in Regency Oaks, being the building site is across from their entrance gate. Remember, mayor and council for the people. Jerry Baruti, 20806 Woodland Cove. I'd like to share my input on the garden home variances being reviewed tonight. The construction of smaller garden homes on lots more manageable for older residents is a positive means of allowing longtime residents to remain in Garden Ridge. The size of the homes, 1,600 square foot, seems adequate, but the total lot size seems small, and approval would depend on the placement of the homes and the overall look of the development. Shannon Dritta, 9380 Cinchona Trail. Planning and Zoning Board members, City Council members, and Mayor Thompson. My name is Shannon Dritta, and I live at 9380 Cinchona Trail. I appreciate you allowing us to make comments about the Overman Properties concept of garden homes. While I'm hugely in favor of adding garden homes, I think that there needs to be more consideration for the amount of homes that they are proposing and the overall layout concept. I don't think the space on FM 2252 would support the amount of traffic or amenities that Overman Properties is proposing. This seems like a big decision for our community without much time to hear public comments. Also, in this unsure time of safety to allow large numbers of people to attend a planning and zoning meeting because of COVID-19, we aren't giving people time to adequately be able to voice their opinions. Hopefully the Planning and Zoning Committee, along with the City Council, will take that into consideration. When UTSA did the master plan brief a few years ago, they mentioned that garden-sized homes was a huge need for our community. I could not agree more. Our community's average age does not model normal cities. We have an inverted pyramid where our greatest numbers are in the 55 plus age bracket. I have a personal example here on my own street. Across the street, we had two houses with women who were 92 and 98 respectively. Both of them had been widowed at least 15 years before. Both needed assistance in shopping, house cleaning, pool maintenance, and entire outdoor yard maintenance. They had lived in their houses for over 30 years though, and did not have the physical ability or desire to move to a new place outside of our city. When they were able to drive, they knew their route to HEB. They knew their route to church. Why would we want to let these wonderful people leave our community just because their house has become too much for them to maintain? The other example I can offer is my next door neighbor. When he broke his leg and was in the hospital and then the rehab hospital, they stayed in the local hotel for many months while he was finishing physical therapy. Their house was too big to maintain with his limited mobility. They loved being at a hotel because it was close enough to their house. They loved having the housekeeping service, meal service just downstairs that they didn't have to prepare, and no large yard or house to maintain. This just shows that even though they weren't ready to move into a smaller house in another community, their current residence was too much for them to maintain. The entire Garden Ridge community needs everyone to be able to stay. I just think this idea needs to be thought out logistically a little bit more. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. And number 4. Pamphlets 8927 Garden Ridge Drive. First and foremost, there should be no subsidizing of the builder/developer for drainage requirements, period. All the previous attempts at garden home development that were voted down had the developer/homeowner paying for their own installation of septic systems. Go back and look at the archives and see what they were doing to handle that situation. If the developer wants to make the money on this project, he should be responsible for the basics. No deferment of expenses from the builder to the citizens. The city could certainly use additional tax revenues, but hopefully not from raising taxes to help fund this new large drainage system. They'll need to get the money to fund the drainage system from somewhere eventually, and that will end up being a raise in taxes. The city's letter asking for a vote on items that they don't even say what the final cost will be. How is that a correct way to present the facts? The building code requirements should be the same as what other residents and builders have had to adhere to. Previous garden home building requirements, as I recall, called for 3/4 masonry. This proposal evidently includes building with siding and some masonry. That makes it much cheaper for the developer to build and expands their profit margin. Not the citizenry's concern, however, not suitable for Garden Ridge. Even communities close to Garden Ridge that have used hardy plank, a cement type substitute for masonry, have deteriorated those areas much faster than regular masonry would have. 15 acres of tiny houses stacked up next to each other at one of the main entrances to Garden Ridge will leave a totally different impression of our area, one which we have successfully avoided up till now. And if these people wanting this type of development are mostly current older residents, the homes should all be one story. Do we want our area to look like all these other subdivisions and shirts with all the smaller homes 5 feet from next door neighbor? The minimum square footage requirement should be at least 1,800 square feet. Residents needing smaller size should make arrangements for housekeepers and or yard people. Otherwise, they should consider retiring into apartment residences. Very important consideration. There should be no joint access from residential to commercial area at any time. Make the commercial accessible by a completely separate entrance, or the residential area will not be a secure living place. We keep hearing people want to be able to walk to the commercial developments. Nothing will keep them from doing so. if they have to walk a tad further to a separate entrance. Otherwise, you can plan on hiring and paying for more police protection as curious people driving around can freely enter and drive around the residences, causing problems or break-ins. We doubt anyone is going to want to purchase a lot and build right up next to the railroad tracks. Other suggestions for use of that land area on this 15 acres. Also, all the other homes built will be that much closer to the railroad traffic noise. Not something we would want in any size home. The last push for garden patio home development was in a treed area within the city limits with no cheapening of building restrictions and required standing metal seam roofs for maintaining upscale appearances. We find no description of that in the information sent out. Perhaps the developer is hoping that subject will not be broached. Are the rear entry garages attached to the houses, or will the occupants have to walk outside to get inside the houses? This is a security risk. The last time we all met about the last plan presented for garden home developers were all laid out in a fancy presentation from one of the classes at the University of Texas here in San Antonio. It showed lovely trees, shrubs, landscaping, etc. And when all was said and done, it was admitted there was no guarantee that type of look would be in place after development. The look was purely for show to help get approval. Perhaps this developer could trade this residential portion of the land for another spot on 2252 with trees and where POD septic systems were planned for each 3 to 4 houses. However, then how would it be decided and confirmed which house on the POD system was doing their responsibility of adding the riddicks to keep the septic in good order? This is being rushed through without proper thought and consideration. Is that because the developer thinks that because of the virus there will be a depleted attendance and easier to get an approval, or because City Council is desperate for increased tax base? Submitted by older residents with over 30 years residency in area, we could benefit from a garden home with less upkeep, but not to the detriment of the rest of the area. Let's do this the right way, please. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Spencer. That concludes the public hearing portion. At 8:02 p.m. I guess at nowhere on this on agenda do I see a place to discuss each one of these. Am I supposed to lump them together or split them apart? I'm asking the city administrator because I've gotten conflicting ideas of which way I'm supposed to go.
You can address each one individually.
Okay.
Or if the commission desires to speak about only certain ones, that could be accomplished as well.
So we can do it either way, that's what you're saying. I wondered if by protocol, I was supposed to go over each one. I've heard pretty much each one of them mentioned in some of the discussion in the public hearing portion. So I think probably the best way to do it is to go over each one. I'll read them. I think I'll read them in aggregate and then open it for discussion for the commission, and they can refer back to them. Were you raising your hand? Okay. And I think that's probably the best way to do it. And then we can discuss it and people can hear what we have to say. First variance asked for is for the garages. which has been discussed at length in some of the discussion from the public. The second one was the impervious cover. I heard that mentioned as well. Lot size, which was the third one. Lot width, front yard setback, side yards, and the corner lots, side yards, and interior lots. The rear yard depth was also mentioned. House size, quite a bit. Fences, both the composition of the fences and the height of the fences was mentioned. And then we had, I didn't hear anybody say anything about the signs. Did I miss it? There's one comment about the signs, I believe. And it said it was okay, that person wasn't having any problems with that, the signs. And then we had two variances pertaining to Article 1, Section 3, definitions of an alley as a minor public right-of-way, and Section 7, excuse me, pertaining to the width of the streets. Ms. Kane.
Mr. Overman would like to address the variance request.
I was going to ask for him to address those various questions. Did you want to address them after you hear what the council or commission discusses, or do you want to discuss the variances before? You may answer some of our questions. Why don't you go ahead and discuss them first, because you may answer some of our questions that we may have had in the discussion and preclude some of the discussion, Mr. Overman, please, if you would.
Yes, sir. I was going to make a...
Need the mic.
Mr. Overman? Oh. Well, they've got your mic now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I was just going to make a recommendation that if you need any explanation or understanding of why we're asking for these requests, just right away off the top of my head, people are going, why are there so many variances? Well, as one gentleman stood up and said, I mean, the reason why is this is the whole special permit and the whole variance request is because these are garden homes. And in order to build garden homes, these are the requests and variances that you have to ask in order to make that happen. If they weren't garden homes, obviously I wouldn't even be here. So to answer that overall, that's why there are so many variances, because in order to make it happen, you have to, and I listed all of the ordinances that would keep us from doing that if we didn't have asked for variances. So that's why. And if you have any questions about any of these, if you want to go down the list, or I'm willing to answer and explain why on any of them.
I think planning and zoning, having heard your presentation before and had more time to look at some of these things, understand things a little better than some of the general citizenry does, to be truthful with you. We may in fact have some questions about it. I wrote down some notes, but I think probably right now we could probably do with the discussion part of what the commission wants to do, and you can hear what we think about it. We know it's not something that you just came up with off the top of your head. You gave a fine presentation the first time, and we got a little bit of insight to some of the things. I'd like to start the discussion probably on my left side. What are your feelings, Ms. Owen?
Mr. Chairman, I'm, as a long-term commissioner on this commission and going through the various ordinances, I'm somewhat stressed. Yes? I'm somewhat stressed about the requirements that are being asked for, because they deviate in such from our original ordinance. It's hard to look at setbacks and garages, and while we're here tonight to discuss how Mr. Overman fits into our development, there's a lot of concerns from the citizens about how the final project would look. And I understand he's got the Norman Rockwell concern, and he has presented it in that way. So if that's the concept that Garden Ridge is looking for in the design, I don't think we're here to discuss that tonight, except for the exceptions to the roads. I'm concerned about the alleys. I'm concerned about the setbacks. I'm concerned about the sewer, which can't go in. So I have a lot of concerns about each one of these, and I'm not really comfortable with granting variances from a 35% to a 75%. That's a obligation that does not fit within our requirements of our ordinance. So I'm concerned about that as a commissioner when it's not on our ordinance or our books, so to speak, to do that. It's extreme, and it does set a precedent for garden homes, which we have not on this commission yet done so, to look at the specs and requirements for ordinances for garden homes. So I yield back to my colleagues and for discussion.
Thank you. Commissioner Dow?
I understand, because I researched garden home properties for this commission on my own. We discussed it, we beat it to death. We've been 3 years on the rewrite of the ordinance, which we almost got to the city council until last year when the legislators of our wonderful state decided that no one could afford to buy a house in the state of Texas. So they released all the restrictions on the building materials coming in, which means they can build whatever they want to build out of whatever they want to build in our city, and we can't do a thing about it. That's every city in the state of Texas. Every small town, every big city are under the same legal obligations. To find a developer to come in and wants to build a home similar to what we have in Garden Ridge at this time, with some of the requirements that we've all come to know within Garden Ridge. And if y'all think y'all lived here a long time, here, my family came here in 1852. I've been here a while. Now, I have questions about lot size and stuff, and I know Tony very well. We go to church together. I know the developments that he's done, and I think his intent is close to his heart to do that. And some of the restrictions that we're looking at, some of the variants we're looking at, yeah, I have questions about, do we have to set the side setback so far away from associated, or come close, reduce those so we can come close to those, because that's one of the biggest argument about that property down there for a long time. But if we look at the overall development, if we reduce the number of properties that are there, can we fit it better into that piece, that 15 acres? So reduce some of the really large, more than 50% requests in those spaces. But I think the engineers and those people who have set those out, they know way much better than we do what will fit and not fit. I don't think there'll be any problem with, and I live in Regency Oaks, straight across the street from them, okay? But every time we go to move, we've been moving and been asked to do, we have a whole section on Wetz's property that's zoned for this in the master plan. Well, it's not driven a stake in rock, that's that where it stays. You know, I would come to Mr. Overman and say, hey, can you look at the financial impact, what it would have on the developer from himself, and if we reduce the number of homes in there, not drastically, but only to size it down enough to fit the property better. There's advantages to putting that many houses in there, but there's also advantages to bringing it back down some. Maybe in lieu of certain houses, maybe there might be a small place for a community center or something of that nature. But I think if you spend enough time in the garden home communities, the streets are sized down. Most of them are rear entry. Most of them have reduced amounts of masonry on them. They have reduced lot sizes. They do have side houses. These are not, they're not proposed at 0 lot lines. So there's a lot of good things here. It is scary. They were talking about, I mean, it's scary. I've been here a long time, and but it's something we need in the community. I have had a lot of friends move from this community to go somewhere else because there was not a house that they could handle. That's income that we're losing in our community, resources, education, family, that we shouldn't be losing out of our community. And personally, if you think it's going to do nothing but harm, you ought to be kind of ashamed of yourself that you're just willing to kick somebody across the state line or across the city line out because it doesn't fit with your thought. If it's built properly, which I think Mr. Overman and his family will do, I think we can reduce the number of ordinances or the impact of variances being requested on there. And there's going to be, this is the beginning, there's going to be give and take both ways. I'm sure Tony sits there and knows that there's give and take. Every developer knows that. But I think we need to go down each ordinance one at a time and say, okay, how does that affect the development? How does each one affect the development? If we lump them all together, we're not going to get a clear view of it. So we set back 15 feet instead of 25 feet. What does that do for you, Tony? What does it give you in the development? If we look at the side lot sizes, 5 foot or instead of 15 to 5, what does that do for you? Just positioning, more houses. In order to get certain streets and alleyways in, that's what we have to do. I'm sure there's a logical reason for it. So that's kind of the answer I'm looking for. But, and I think that, again, the rush to judgment would not be too prudent, but it wouldn't be that hard to go down one by one and say, okay, how does each one impact that development? That would be my question. That's it.
Thank you, Dave. Ms. Diaz?
Going back to the master plan that we had for Garden Ridge and was presented a couple of years ago, the area that Mr. Overman is looking to build garden homes has actually, in that master plan, was designated for garden homes. It's too bad because we've been working on the ordinances. Somebody asked about, why don't we redo our ordinances? Well, believe it or not, we've been working on that for a couple of years now, trying to get through all of this. Your development is just a little bit ahead of our getting, this, completed. So the fact that you're coming in right now with the garden home concept is the reason there's so many variances that you've had to ask for. And I recognize that. And I think a lot of the people that have made comments or concerns maybe didn't have the total benefit of understanding or seeing or, having the information that you put out that the commission does have. For example, you, in one of your concept plans, you said this will be a gated community. So it's not like you're going to have cars driving in and out of there and all this. I also got the impression that you're looking for this to be a 55 plus, but that really hasn't been stated for sure. It's mentioned, but it wasn't totally specific that this would be 55 plus. If it was, we wouldn't have a problem with school buses and all in smaller streets and things. My biggest problem is the number of houses you're trying to put in there. Because in the master plan, we had, the city had looked at, for the garden home area, medium density, not high density, which is what I see when I look at your layout. The number of homes you're trying to put in there, to me, makes it more high density. And in my own way of thinking, I said, well, if you're looking at this many homes, it's almost as if you have an apartment complex, but no, up and downstairs. It's all laid out one level. I think the biggest problem for most of the citizens of Garden Ridge is we don't want high density. Okay, that's a big issue. So if there was a way that you could re-look at the area, making the houses larger, making the lot sizes larger, that would cut down on the impervious cover amount that you're asking for too. So, and I think that's a big thing, a real big, 75%, it's like almost unheard, well, it is unheard of. You want to ask a question?
Well, I didn't know if you wanted me to respond to anything.
No, I'm just making comments
Oh,
right now.
okay.
Because when we all end up making comments, then you'll be able to possibly get an idea of where the issues are, okay? To me, a one-car garage is an issue. Even if it's going to be a 55-plus community, if the homes are so small, though, and you only need one-car garage, even if the individual only has one car, they could have storage, which they're not going to have in their home because the homes are so small. But also for resale, two-car garages are pretty much what people are looking for these days, not one-car garages. So my biggest thing is the number of units we're trying to put on an acre. And I think that has to be revisited. And with that, I'll just pass it on because I think other commissioners have things to say as well. By the way, we are landlocked in Garden Ridge, in case anybody didn't know that. So there's no, we couldn't even find another place to put other garden homes or anything else. So this was the area that was designated. Do I like the fact that it's by the railroad? No, I do not. And I know what you said about the fact that, you've sat out there and you didn't hardly hear anything. I live a few miles, a mile and a half from the railroad track. I can hear the train whistle at different times of the day. I can't imagine being right if it's, 600 feet from the railroad track or something, based on what I saw on one of the drawings, a little under 700 feet. If you're going to feel the vibration of the train coming through, that bothers me. But there's got to be a way too, instead of having a wire, what I read was like a wire fencing or metal fencing around the back and sides of the property. If there's a way to make a more substantial type of wall where you would not only have to see the dadgum railroad tracks all the time, but maybe maybe a buffer to lessen the noise or something. So that's all I have for right now.
Mr. Overman, we'll give you opportunity to, I'm assuming or hoping you've been writing down some of these things the commissioners are concerned with. There's a theme that's been developing, just getting to my point, and I'm not going to speak now. I'm going to pass it over to my right. But I'd like you to be able to speak to it at the end, as opposed to after each one. Okay. On my right, please, Mr. Jackman.
Thank you, Chairman. I do have some additional concerns, as my fellow commissioners have expressed, that I think we've heard that I think a traffic impact study would be a good to see that what impact, as it is FM 2252 and 3009, that intersection, it does get a little backed up at certain times, and I'd like to just maybe see a traffic impact study, if that's something that could be looked at, and as well as an environmental impact study that's been mentioned. The other concerns that I have is, aside from some of the other concerns my commissioners have mentioned, is the fencing is a concern, and I think the width of the streets, as far as for fire or EMS, and also trash pickup, that could be a little bit, a little tight for that variance that you're requesting. I think I would leave it, pass it on to my other fellow commissioners. That's pretty much what I have.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mr.
yeah,
Valdez?
I've spent several days going over all these requests and studying them and going over the new ordinance that we've been working on and the impact of that. And I have comments on every one of these ordinances, but I'll just give you a brief. I have concerns with the one-car garage. I prefer two. The impervious cover, while you're asking for 75, you know, we typically look at the one lot. But if you look at the whole lot as 15 acres, what's the impact of the streets and the alleys and all the concrete? And it's probably pushing 80%. So that's something I think you want to look at. And also, we need to consider that as part of the ordinance also. The minimum lot size, when we did the master plan, it was like Commissioner Diaz mentioned about moderate density. And that's what the new ordinance has, moderate density. 10,000 square feet lots, quarter-acre lots. That's what we're looking at in the new rewrite. So that's something to consider. Is that what I would like to see, quarter-acre lots? 4 houses per dwellings per acre. What else? And if you do that, I'll take care of all the setback lines, lot widths, everything like that. Housing size, I'm debatable on that, where that has to be at 1,600 or 2,000 or whatever. I can probably go either way on that. Fencing, I'm not sure we can do anything about the fencing with the new regulations. The sign regulations, kind of wondering why you looked at the C, master Python sign versus the commercial real estate sign. Because when I see that, the C, master Python, that's what I see advertising for many businesses, where you have, like for the corner lot you have, you can do for all the different, businesses, you may list them all. I see that, you don't need that for this type of resident. So I would like to see, maybe consider B, the commercial real estate sign as the one to use for guidelines there. So that's 20 foot in perimeter, 6 foot high. The alleys I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about the width of the alleys. I think it'd be challenging for anybody to utilize as a primary egress, regress. I think like some of the citizens have mentioned about clutter, you'll have to put trash pickup in the back, so you need to be able to allow for trash trucks to go through there. I understand that you're putting the alleys in just because you're trying to get the 4,400 square feet lots. If we go to quarter acres, I'd like to see the front entry, garages. Put side entry garages in the front. You got plenty of room when you go 60 foot wide or more on lot size. And then for the street size, the same thing. While your HOA restricts overnight parking, I don't know how you're going to enforce that. George Ranch tried to do that and failed. Had to give that up. And we have a standard size streets there. So I think enforcing overnight parking or any parking there, your request for you're requesting 20 foot wide. I think it's going to be a problem with emergency vehicles, because you can legally park a car 12 inches from the curb, so up to 12 inches away. So that gives you that much more room. So I think it's going to make it real narrow for fire trucks. I think in both the alleys and the streets, you should talk to the police chief and the fire chief for the city to see what their thoughts were on that. Be sure you have their thoughts. Okay, that kind of summarizes all those. That's all I have.
Commissioner Hire.
Thank you. I'm certainly not opposed to garden homes, and it's already planned in our master plan to be along 2252. And Mr. Overman, I appreciate your fine track record in the city of development, and I think you do a fine job of developing any property you're going to develop in the future. I am concerned about the density here. I am concerned about the widths of the streets and alleys for safety purposes. I am concerned about one-car garages. I think it needs to be at least a minimum of 2. And as Commissioner Valdez just indicated, we've been spending a lot of time trying to rewrite our ordinance to accommodate garden homes, and we've, at this point, in draft format, it's not decided yet, but we're looking at a 10,000 square foot lot. And that's after a lot of consideration and a lot of time and effort. So I hope you can take those comments and go forward. I think you do a very responsible job of developing a residential community across from the current residential community across the street. I don't think there could be I don't live in Regency Oaks, but if I did, I think I would prefer to see a residential community across the street from me as opposed to some commercial development. But we'll leave that to be decided, I guess. So going forward, I think, you know, we'd like to continue to work this out. And I just think we need more time to do it. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Howard. I had several things I wrote down, as well as some things that I had highlighted over the weekend after I got my packet. The theme, again, is just concerns about the density. Looks like things are kind of close together. Everybody keeps saying that over and over again, and it comes down to lot size and house size and street size and width, et cetera, et cetera. So we're having some problems with density. HOA, the plan for HOA, I think, is admirable, but we know that can be in flux. But the way I understand it, the developer develops the HOA until a certain percentage of the homes are sold. Is that right? Is that the way it works, city attorney or city administrator? After a certain percentage of the homes are sold in the development, he usually turns it over, the HOA, to the homeowners, and then they take over the HOA. So you do get a chance to write the HOA rules, but they can be changed once it's turned over to the homeowners somewhere down the line. That's the way I understood HOAs to work. The way I looked at it, I'm not a splitter, I'm a lumper. I lumped it all together and I saw, and maybe I'm wrong, Mr. Overman, that everything you asked for was basically to get your foot in the door to develop garden homes. That's basically what it comes down to. Everything you asked for was predicated on our present ordinance, the one that we have to go by. Ordinance 13 is the one we have to go by. We are in the middle of rewriting that ordinance. We have been, in fact, 2 years rewriting that ordinance. We were just about there last September, and the legislature changed some things on us that set us back probably 80, we had to relook, pretty much 80% of the ordinance had to be looked at. A lot of these things you talked about or asked for are covered in the new ordinance, not to change the size or the depth or setbacks, but there was a way in the new ordinance that you could come to the city council and city with a development and say, this is what I want to do, this is what I have in mind, and you can almost lump together a lot of the variances would change, but lump together the changes that you wanted in the variance. It says, could I get this done? And if we were impressed, we can move on with it. I also hear a lot of talk about, questions about the one-car. Is it a one-car garage or is it a two-car garage? I'm asking, Mr. Ober, I really am.
I'm sorry, you told me not to answer questions till the end.
I'm at the end. My vote really doesn't count unless we come up with a tie. Okay?
Sure.
So we're pretty much at the end. But I kept hearing people talking about the garage, and I'm saying, I read it as there's a certain number were going to be one-car garages, but most of them are going to be two-car garages.
Yes, sir. And just to make a statement tonight, I've been doing this for a long, long time myself, just like Commissioner Owen. We've been in a lot of meetings together, and I know there's give and take to make something happen. And the one-car garage thing was, I don't have a problem making everything a two-car garage. That's really, that's just not something that's major to make something happen. So if that's something that would resolve that problem, I can easily say yes to making all of them two-car garages. The reason for asking it, Commissioner, was that well, I was trying to meet needs, and I thought I wanted different sizes of houses for different people's needs. Some people who might be single, have lost a spouse, just needed a smaller home with one car. He or she had one car. That was the purpose. But if two cars is something that would be more appealing, I certainly, my position would be to want to provide the needs of the people that would be interested in buying them.
That actually leads me to one of the other questions I had for the city administrator. Is this an all or none thing? And is there any contingencies? Can we grant variances with contingencies, or is it as written and that's it? And is the variances as we have, and I saw you look over the city attorney, you need to put your heads together. Are there contingent? Can we say, you know, we're having trouble with this, we're having trouble with that, and is it a negotiation, or is it Mr. Overman comes and says, this is what I want, and we sit here in judgment and say, no, you can't have it, or yes, you can have it. I didn't gather it was like that, and this is new ground for me and probably pretty much everybody else on the commission, because in the past we've had onesies and twosies.
Right.
We've never had a bunch of ordinances, excuse me, a bunch of variances requested because it hasn't been necessary. I think it's very important now, and this is actually the whole reason I got on volunteerism and got on city planning and zoning, was because I knew that property was across the street from me, and somewhere down the line, somebody's going to develop it. I knew that coming in, okay? And over the years, some people have tried to develop it and put some things there that the community as a whole didn't like. And quite frankly, I'm an outlier, because I pretty much liked everything that was presented. And my neighbors said, oh, no, Jim, so, and we voted it down. But I do believe the city does have some fears and concerns about growth. There's going to be a subset of people that don't want any change at all. There's another pragmatic set of people that says, okay, we're going to change. And a lot of people in my neighborhood are pragmatic about it enough to the point to say, okay, you know, we'd like to have some say in what goes across the street. But in all honesty, we didn't buy the property, so, you know, we can't do with so much other than what we're doing right now. The other, so I need a question. I have a question about, is it all or none proposition, or is it a negotiation, so to speak? The other theme I heard is a lot of people feel it's a rush, okay? And I don't know if there is a rush. I don't know, Mr. Overman, some of it's directed to yourself, some of it's directed to the city administrator and staff. I know you said you had a contract, didn't have a contract, somebody else come up and they have ownership in the property, maybe he's the seller, I don't know. Is there a rush? Because there is only a 2-day turnaround before this goes to the city council. And when I spoke to one of my mentors about this thing, he said, well, Jim, it sounds to me like, you know, you're trying to rush something. And I said, I don't know. It does seem like that. In the past, when we had variances, there's been a month between the public hearings, simply because that's the way the city meetings were designed. We had ours after the city council, so it was a month before the city council had to hear it. And this is the biggest one. To me, this is the biggest one we've had, the most important one we've ever had, and there's only a 2-day break in between. I've heard that over and over again from the citizens, and I myself have said, well, you know, are we rushing? And maybe we need to get some more input from citizens or city staff or whatever. Is there a rush?
Oh, Dr. Miller, I don't like to use the word rush
Okay.
because it sounds like we're not thoughtfully thinking through this process, and there's pressure, and I'm not trying to put pressure on anybody. Who am I to put pressure on all of you? You know, that's not my position. That the only pressure that I have, not that you have, is that, as David said when he came up, that I have a earnest money contract on this pending contingent upon the possibility of being able to do this. In other words, I've put money down on this property, but I haven't closed on it because I don't want to buy the property if I can't build garden homes on it. So that's the only rush, I guess, that I have, is that I don't want to, it's a very expensive piece of property, and I don't want to buy property and not be able to do anything with it. Because honestly, I really don't want to do anything else other than garden homes, and that's what I think would be beautiful there. I honestly don't think that retail buildings and warehouses and that would be a great choice for that, and honestly, I'm a little perplexed by the comments of people knowing that, especially people that live in Reeds the Oaks, like, gosh, I'm wanting to build something beautiful there. So that's the rush for me, is that my contract now, if I can negotiate this, kind of a weird thing to be saying this publicly, but if I could get extensions with Mr. Penzick and because I'm trying to make this happen, I'm trying to do it the right way. I want to work with you. I appreciate all of your comments, and I'm willing to look at everything to make it happen, but that's my rush. I'm sorry to give you a round-the-block answer, but.
No, you've answered my question. The other question I had for the city administrator is, I heard people bring up environmental studies, traffic studies, water studies. I think all that, the way I understand it on planning and zoning, is that's the responsibility of the city, and then they try to recoup as much as they can from the developer, because it's for the city's growth down the line. And so the developer, that's again, is another negotiation. How much developer pays for, how much the city pays for. That's the way I understood it. And so to put it all on the developer, I don't think it's fair. Put it all on the city, I don't think it's fair. Do I have that concept wrong?
Well, Mr. Overman supplied everything that our current variance application requires he submit, as well as our special use permit.
Okay.
If those were things that you wanted to have supplied in order to make that decision, you could ask for those to be brought forward. In relation to your first question to me, you will need to go through each variance request and vote on them individually.
Okay.
You cannot negotiate at this point.
Okay.
Okay? If the variances do not pass, it is highly possible that Mr. Overman would not be able to go forward with the development of the garden homes. And therefore, then the special use permit would be, we could not proceed forward with that. Now,
But let me interrupt you there, because again, we're a recommending body. We're not a deciding body.
you are a recommending body, but you will be taking actions towards that recommendation to City Council.
Yes.
That's why you will be taking a vote on each of the variance requests. Now, I would like to say something to Mr. Overman. If Mr. Overman desires to withdraw at this point, he can before the vote is taken. And then he comes back to the Planning and Zoning Commission after hearing all the comments with another plan. Did I say it all correct? Okay. Did I miss anything?
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, please.
So, again, you and I have been in a lot of these meetings too before, so I know the way it goes. So, on, let's say 2 or 3 of these variance requests, I want to work and change it because of their concerns. Can they not voice that and then me come back with 3 of those?
We are, because of the way the notice is posted, it is specific to, they have to take a vote on each one of the variance requests.
So if they say, no, we want 2-car versus a 1-car, just using it as an example, and so they say no on that particular variance, and they say yes on the others, can I not come back on that variance or several variances, whatever, and make those changes with them based on their?
You would have to resubmit.
I'd have to resubmit on just those specific ones. I'm trying to.
On any of the variances that you would be requesting.
So
yes.
They would send it to city council and say, we want changes in this area. Yes, 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 no, no, yes, 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 like that. Is that correct?
I'm confused too.
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused.
Did I say it wrong?
I don't know if you said it wrong, because I got confused. Could we go forward with the ones that we liked?
No, you're going to have to address each variance that's requested.
As requested, but as we addressed each variance as it's requested, some of them there's 14 of them.
Right.
Seven of them maybe we have no problem with. Okay, the other 7, we do have a
But
problem
are
with.
those 7, but out of those 7, or out of the ones that you approve and the ones that you reject, is Mr. Overman going to be able to make that development work?
And that's where I come back to the lumping thing. They all kind of go back to garden homes, basically going to whether or not we want garden homes. And
To make the garden homes work, Mr. Overman, or the garden home development that he was proposing, that he has presented to y'all, the documentation that you have in your packets, the documentation that was sent to the adjoining property owners. He is asking for each one of these variances to make that project work.
I understand.
So if, for instance, if you denied the lot size, then he would not be able to make that project work. Is that correct, Mr. Overman?
Well, I don't know if I could answer that question right here. It's about numbers. It's about.
Because if they denied the lot size, then you're tied to 3/4 of an acre lot size.
Well, then they're not garden homes. I mean,
No, I know. Can you explain it better, Cynthia? And come back.
But the density issue is based on developing garden homes, and that's the way garden homes look.
I know. I mean,
And so, Mr. Valdez's comment was that, he'd like one quarter acre lots. It kind of defeats the purpose. It's like, why don't I just build a neighborhood of regular homes? Because
Well, that's what we're saying.
I know, but that's not what I want to do. And if that's the case, I would probably pull out of the project because.
Our proposed ordinance has moderate density.
Right.
Whether you call them garden homes or just a subdivision, quarter acre minimum, so.
Right, but
That's what you have to
then
come
they
back
wouldn't be
with.
considered garden homes with quarter
Yeah,
acre
so you have
lots.
to just change the name of it.
But the people are, the whole purpose, like part of it is the square footage of the home and people's yards. They don't want big yards to take care of. And so I'd kind of be
Well,
defeating.
I think our proposed definition of a garden home is one that's on a quarter acre. That's what's in our draft format right now. So you may disagree with that,
Yes, yes, sir.
but our definition of a garden home is 10,000 square foot lot.
And I think I'd have to, if you are standing firm on that, and I don't know if that's something you're standing firm on, or, I'd have to see if, honestly, if I can
Well, you have to see if the numbers
break
work,
even or make any
obviously.
money with that,
Right, Exactly, but
I mean,
that's in draft format now. That's not the ordinance we're working with right now. What we're working with right now, to Nancy's point, is a 3/4 acre lot. So if we disapproved your lot size, that means you can only, it's a moot point. You're talking about 3/4 acre lots then.
Or
It's
you
either
come
yes
back-
or no. It's essentially that.
is that a question to me?
No, I'm just making the.
You have to come back with a different variance, to a different lot size, is what you have to come back at. Oh.
See, it seems to me that rather than us go through each one of these, and if we have enough no's, and based on our evaluation, I think there's going to be quite a few no's. It seems to me that it would be better for you to have kind of heard not only the citizens, but the commission's comments and concerns, to say, okay, let's stop, so we don't vote on any of this, but you have an idea where the issues are right now. That would be better if you would then take that information, go back, redo your numbers, see if there's any way that you could come back with a revised plan, if you will, for less density, because this is high density. And Garden Ridge is not about high density, okay? And I think you've heard that from all these comments, and then the citizens that actually came in to say that's why they didn't want supposed garden homes, because it was too high density. If there was any way that you could go back and relook at your numbers and the thoughts that are being expressed to you right now and resubmit, that might be a better thing than what Nancy said, is we vote for each one and we end up saying as a whole, no. So then it's kind of a moot point. We don't even go to the special use permit.
Well, then I'm going to ask that we table it then, because I think at this point, I've listened to what you've all said. I appreciate your comments. I have to see, based on what you're asking, if this is going to work or not. And if it works, I come back, then you say yes. If not, then I turn it back over to David, and he sells it to somebody to do something else. I mean, it's just that simple.
Mr. Overman,
yeah.
I think it's a wonderful development. You put a lot of thought in it, and I hate to see your thoughts being reconsidered. But you probably do need to look at the current ordinances that say 3/4 of an acre. And as Councilman Valdez said, we have been rewriting this ordinance for over 2 years now. And we've gotten down to looking at the 10,000 square foot lot. But that's not been approved yet. It's still in rewrite for total approval. So if you would look at the 3/4 acres, that area only can have 3/4 of an acre. But later, if we do this, it could have a 10,000 square foot, which is medium density. So, I appreciate you coming in tonight with the package and all the different variances, but they're not our ordinances currently. So the variance requests are just way out there. As I mentioned earlier, I'm concerned that the high density is being made by the request to move things from 35% density on the grass to 75 or 80. And we have to uphold the ordinances as they're written today. So you have to look at that to make sure that when you ask for a variance, that you have a definitely reason why, and give us some kind of indication that how it's going to impact if you don't get that, or if you do get that. Like, for example, just maybe the gated community, if you wanted a variance for that.
Yes, ma'am, and let me just say, at 10,000 square foot lots, I wouldn't be able to do it. I can tell you right now, because it's just, infrastructure is very, very expensive for developers.
Sure it is.
Roads and sewers and water lines and electric lines, and especially on this particular lot, it requires underground electric, which is a lot more expensive than above ground, and it looks better, but that's what I would be doing. But at 10,000 square foot, there will be no garden homes in Garden Ridge, and I know a lot of people that might be listening right now are applauding, but I'm sad because honestly, if that's what you're saying, you're hard on that, it won't work. I can't make it.
Mr. Overman, we
Yes,
have to enforce the ordinances as they have been written by the city. I know you've come in here many times when you built along 2252, setbacks and some of that. Well, when you're talking about a piece of property that's 5 acres and you're putting 70 homes on it, that we can't say whether we like that or don't like it. We have to follow the ordinance.
But that's what variances requests are for.
But variances are only on, small items, 2 or 3 feet, not large, not from 25 to 75 difference in a feet. I just can't justify that as my oath as a commission to say, that's good. Because the next person, you've heard the citizens say that, the next person that comes in here is going to say, well, I want 100 feet. And you can't just say the person can't just say, because you gave Mr. Overman that, I want this. That isn't management by city at all. So
No, I understand that, Commissioner, but at the same time, developers for, since 1972 have been coming to this city, and variances are given every single month to somebody for different things. I mean, that's
various
what they're for.
reasons that were put out that were subsidized or validated. I understand you as a developer. I worked for a company that did development many years ago, and I understand it's about your desire to do what you want and to make that Norman Rockwell picture there. And it's not a bad idea, but it just will not fit into the envelope of the ordinances that we currently have. And moving forward, as Commissioner Valdez said, we're only going to, and Commissioner Valdez said, is that we're only going to be into 10,000 square feet, which is medium density. And, we don't have that approved yet. I mean, that's like giving you future information that, yes, it's going to be approved. But that's what the concept that we were looking for in Garden Ridge. It's very heartful to come in here with your hopes and the beautiful pictures and everything, but we just can't say, yeah, you're a wonderful developer, we'll give it to you, because it just doesn't work that way.
I understand that.
Yeah.
That's not fair to say to me I'm expecting that, because that's not. I've
don't-
done this for 30 years with the city.
I don't mean that condescending. I'm just saying that
Let me
it's just
interject
getting
here.
difficult.
I think another commissioner has something to say. Commissioner Dow? You have something to say, you raised your hand.
We're asking Mr. Overman to go and listen to all the comments we made and this stuff and go back. There's really no reason to come back, and if we're telling him basically the best we're ever going to do is 10,000 square feet. If he's looking at the cost development of moderate density or medium density on 10,000 square feet to do that, and you can't cost effectively do it, then why do we have the ordinance? Why do we even push towards Gordon? If we got a guy giving us honest numbers and said, hey, there's no way to do it on 10,000 square foot, 4 houses for that in that development, we can't make it work, the numbers won't work, then we're essentially, by ordinance, banning that operation. I don't agree with that. I'm sorry. We're supposed to be here to help with the growth of the city. And even back when we were talking about 10,000 feet, I was concerned with that. But I know that's not even in our ordinance right now. We're at 3/4 of an acre. We weren't going to get there from here. We don't know when we're going to get there from here. But I'd really hate for Mr. Overman to go back and waste more money if there's nothing to come back for. I think that irritates me. I apologize, but why ask him to
It
come
might
back?
be a
Why ask him
timing
to come
thing.
back, Kitty,
It
for
might
no
be a-
reason?
We don't know that there will be no reason. It's a timing.
Excuse me,
development
commissioners, I
is like
believe the
that.
city attorney wants to say
Yeah,
something.
All right, so we do need to get back to the agenda.
Yes.
So the choices for tonight are, this is an all or nothing proposition.
Okay.
So if one of these variants fails, then the project fails and we don't move forward to the SUP. Because as this project is presented, it requires each one of these variances. And so we either table, as Mr. Oberman indicated, there might be an opportunity for him to work towards permitting under what we are proposing, and that may be an option for him, but that's certainly at his discretion. There may be an opportunity, if commissioners decide to go through each one of these variances, to go back and review and to see if his project can, come forward with a revision to that particular variance. But at this particular point in time, we can't make these suppositions for Mr. Overman, so we either get that decision from Mr. Overman. Does he wish for the commission to table and allow him some additional, time to review this particular project, knowing what the input is, or we go ahead and proceed and vote one by one, of which, of course, he always has the opportunity with which to readdress a particular variance should it not pass.
Understood. I'm glad we had the dialogue, because that also brought up the point that what we see here is almost like a poll. We had people come in and talk and express their opinions, and not everybody could get in the room, and not everybody was able to come in and talk and express their opinions. If you go out and canvass the whole city, house by house, you may have a whole different perspective on garden homes, per se. So where I understand it, Mr. Overman, is that you'd like to table this at this point in time and maybe get back with the city administrator and look at what you heard here tonight from both from the commissioners and from the public and say, okay, is this something I want to do, or is this something I can do? And I think that's probably a good way to go if that's what you want to do. Things aren't leaning the way, truthfully, I thought they would lean, okay? But I've been wrong before.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Yes, sir.
I do think that it's, as I recommended earlier, that I think that it probably should be tabled for tonight so that I can go back to the drawing board. But me going back to the drawing board is prefaced on the answer that you give me with this question. Are you willing to work with me with my request of the minimum? It was a minimum, not of 4,400 square feet, which that was just the minimum. That wasn't meaning that all the homes or all the lots were that size. Is the Planning and Zoning Committee willing to work with me between 10,000 and 4,400 square feet on the lot size? If you're not willing, if you're set on 10,000, then I'll withdraw the entire project. If you're willing to work with me, I'm willing to go back to the drawing board and come back to you with, and try to answer some of the issues and work together with it. But it's, as...
I understand what you're asking. I don't know how to put it to the commission. Do I take a vote, a consensus, or what on that? I personally, knowing what's in the new ordinance, saw that there is wiggle room because we have things called the planned unit development, where a developer comes in, presents a project to us, and that project may in fact go against some of the variants, some of the ordinances and things in the ordinance, and we say, hey, as a whole, this is a good project, and we want to proceed with it. And that's how I saw this. But under the old ordinances, this is the way we had to do it, one by one by one by one. I'm looking to the administrator and the city attorney to find out how can I answer Mr. Overman's question. If he wants to table it, maybe it's something that he needs to get with the city administrator and see whether there's wiggle room, and she can canvass us one by one and figure out which way we do. Which way do we do it? We put it for the record. We do it for the record and do a vote, and no, we can't do it, or what?
So I don't know that we can give Mr. Overman, because you are as the Planning and Zoning Commission, you are a recommending body only.
Yes.
And so we cannot, the Planning and Zoning Commission cannot give assurances. It can't write a check that it can't cash.
Yeah.
However, the city has historically worked with developers, through processes, through administrative processes, to assist projects where they can in working towards compliance with existing ordinances and compliance with, variance requirements and those sorts of things. So, that's the only assurance that the Planning and Zoning Commission can give, as a commission.
Okay. You heard that, Mr. Overman. That's the best we can do right now. So I think we're going to table, the way I understand it, you want to table your request at this point in time, and we'll move back to the agenda. Do I have that? Is my assumption right? Mr. Overman, that's you, Mr. Overman, yes.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't answer the question, well, then you can't answer the question. Yes, we'll table it. We'll table it, and I'll let you know, I guess, if I want to proceed or not. Because, I mean, right now, based on what they've said with the 10,000, I can't. And I don't know if they're willing to work with me, and they can't answer if they're willing to work with me. So I'm kind of locked here. I don't know what to do. I've never been in this position with planning and zoning before, so. But to answer your question, table it for the night, both on the special, is the special use permit also needs to be tabled, or can that be? The variances, we can't do the special permit? Okay,
Without the variances, you don't have that.
right.
That.
What good is a special
development.
use permit, yeah,
So the special use permit would
okay. Well, then
not be approved for
then
it.
let me just formally, for the record, withdraw for tonight the recommendation of the variances and of the special use permit, and you can proceed with your business on your agenda. And I thank you all very much for your input and your opinions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Overman. I believe you heard both the citizens and the commissioners, and you got honest feedback on where the citizens and the commission has problems, and you have to look at that and see whether or not you can proceed. It's as simple as that. You can see not all of us are in agreement, which is the way it should be. We didn't even get to the point to vote on it, but we were able to narrow it down to one issue, and that one issue is important enough that you want to table it, and so we're going to table it. We'll move back to the business items. I believe business item number 6. Anybody who's here for the next public hearing, we'll give you a minute to leave the area. How do we handle intermissions? We have some biological things that may need to be taken care of.
You can
Call for a recess.
recess the meeting and say what time you want to
Okay.
reconvene.
I want to recess the meeting at 9:07 and have everybody back here at 9:17. That gives us 10 minutes. Okay? Interesting. Hope he understands what we're trying to say. They both can't eat. And Kitty's out the other door. Commissioners? Commissioners? Yoo-hoo, commissioners? There we go. I'm going to reconvene the Planning and Zoning Committee, Commission at 9:18. Moving on to where we left off, business item number 6, business items, and the following for discussion, consideration, and action. Items applicable to the Planning and Zoning Commission discussed at the July and August City Council meetings. had, the city council agreed by consensus to waive the requirement in ordinance 210 that commissioners attend 2 regular city council meetings each calendar year during this public health emergency, and the commissioners are encouraged to watch city council meetings online. That's the only thing really brought back from the city council meetings that's pertinent to planning and zoning at this time. The update on TxDOT projects. I don't know if anybody had any time to work on the, on the update on the TxDOT projects. The city administrator has a hands up. She must have did some little background work on it.
I have a little bit of information. Right now, the utility conflicts with the roadway expansion are being worked out with the different utilities, including our water company. And they're about 60% through the utility conflict process. And I saw a timeline today that looks like they are hoping, or their timeline is that utilities be relocated by the end of April 2022. So that's the latest I have on that.
Moving on, item number 3 on the business items, discussion of ordinance 210. We have the information that was passed down from City Council, which pretty much answered my question that I had in terms of, how we were going to be penalized or held accountable for attending City Council meetings during this, the COVID, The other question I had was buried in ordinance 210 was a requirement that commissioners attend some CME, excuse me, not CME, some continuing education. I call it CME because it was medical education when I was a doctor, but continuing education every 2 years, I believe it is. And we had the opportunity through our city attorney's firm to listen to a webinar, which was excellent, I might add, on July 31st. I don't know how many of us had a chance to listen to it or participate. The point I'm bringing up is that those of us that didn't have a chance at that time, I believe it's been archived and is available. I don't know if it's on YouTube or whatever, but I'm sure we can get with the city attorney or city administrator and find out how access that so we can get our continuing education in planning and zoning. It was an excellent webinar, well worth the time. Does anybody else have anything to add about ordinance 210? The main thing that concerned me was the attendance at city council meetings, and that was taken care of last month.
Well, I have a question, maybe for Marissa or whatever. Even if we're not here in person, but we are watching it either live stream or right after when it's, we can go out and look at the video of the city council meeting. Do we tell you we did that, or does it really even matter?
I would say right now, that wouldn't really have a factor since council agreed to waive that requirement. I think that's something that we, the city administrator and the mayor and I should discuss when we're talking about ordinance 210 on what to do in the future since we're streaming now and we can't actually confirm who's watched it ourselves, basically. So I'd say right now, I don't think that's necessary because the city council's waived that requirement. And I would I think by the time that we get through all of this and the ordinance has been updated, I'll have a better answer for you on that one.
Anybody else? Okay. Moving on, business item number 4, the draft zoning ordinance. We did in fact finish, I guess I'd say, we're semi-finish. We're approaching the finish line in the technical committee, and we're ready to pass it on to the strategic committee to figure out how we're going to present this information to the city council. You have to refresh my memory. Strategic committee, who do we end up deciding was going to be on it? Yourself? David and David. It's the 2 Daves. Okay. And the city council, was it Councilman Lansky
and McCall.
McCall, okay. So we'll leave it up to you guys to get with them, I guess, and figure out when you guys can get together, and then do we pass the document on to them, or is that what we're trying to figure out, how we do it?
Cynthia is going to give you an update where the ordinance stands.
Okay.
It's
tonight. Tonight.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it should be coming back to the commission.
The commission or the technical committee?
The commission.
Okay.
Because y'all need to take action.
Okay.
For a recommendation, and you need to hold a public hearing on it.
Okay.
And after those are accomplished, then it can go forward to city council. But you are very, very close.
I want to get through with it before the legislature.
Me too.
changes again.
So to that end, I have made the revisions that were discussed in technical committee. I have gone through, made multiple revisions to various legal requirements within the actual document itself. The document is now significantly pared down because as we kind of worked our way through the ordinance, we realized that some of the information that was contained within the zoning wasn't strictly zoning ordinance revisions. Some of those were targeted towards the subdivision regulations, which we will be taking up, but just not yet. And so the ordinance as it comes forward to you is going to be more compact, more concise. Many of the regulations that were in the ordinance, as y'all know, we had originally started out with targeting building materials. We then had to switch gears when the legislation changed. We then had the contractor, try to attempt a workaround, which after some discussions with P&Z and then with technical committee, we made a determination as a group that those provisions, we're not going to be the guinea pig to test them whether they work legally or not. We will allow somebody else to go forward with that battle. So those things that were related to building materials as it actually impacted residential construction have all been removed, deleted out. Just a general statement of what the current state of the law regarding building materials has been inserted in. The nuisance provisions, there were some pretty expansive nuisance provisions inserted in there. Those have been revised also to just a general statement of what nuisance law is. The city will have other mechanisms to enforce, various other types of nuisances, but as it pertains to zoning, we've just inserted a general statement of what the law is for nuisance as it applies to zoning regulations. So that's just kind of an example of things that were big revisions that y'all will see, coming forward. Got all of those revised. We do have some cleanup regarding formatting, those sorts of things. However, it's going to come back to technical committee. Technical committee, you guys, zip through it as quickly as you can, so that we can go ahead and get it forward over through the process that Nancy indicated, so that planning and zoning can review it, make that determination. In the meantime, strategic committee, y'all might want to go ahead and start, kind of figuring out when y'all can meet, and start getting your thought processes ready to go, because I think, there is the proverbial light at the end of the tunnel, and this time it is not the legislative train. It is actual completion.
The only question I would have is, we have input from the city attorney. Is there a need or a mechanism for the city engineers to go through it? Number one. The police, number two, and fire, I think. And tonight, we may need to look at some of the things that we discussed, because we didn't have good input from developers. Maybe some of our assumptions were erroneous, to be truthful with you. I don't know, we may need to look at some of that stuff. Not to say that Mr. Overman's requirements influence me, but then some of them we may have been completely off base or way out of line with some of them when we get feedback from developers, because if we have restrictions that nobody can meet, that vacant lot just can't just sit, it's not going to sit there forever. They're going to put something on it. Have we made allowances for the engineers, police, fire, and development? Do you think we need to look at it again and have those guys input for it? I don't know if they want to sit down and read 184 pages of the ordinance, but they may need to.
The city engineer had asked me a number of months back to be able to look at the document. I forwarded him a copy, and I have not received any comments.
Okay.
I will send him an email and ask him if he has any comments, if he's had a chance to review it.
Okay.
Was there a lot in about fire?
Not necessarily. And so, Dr. Miller, to answer your question, that's completely a policy decision on city's end, if y'all want, emergency services of any kind to review.
The only thing, the reason I ask is because sometimes we establish heights of fences and egress and ingress into things, and usually it comes in the site plans and things like that nature. But I may say, I'm driving down the street and a 4-foot fence is plenty, or 8-foot fence is what you call it. A policeman may say, wait a minute, I can't see over 8-foot fence driving down the street, and you turn a corner, you may need a little bit more clearance on some of the corners and sight lines and things like that we talked about a little bit. We didn't talk about them at length. I'd like them to look at those areas and see if we're what their training says about those things. And I know some of it's just passed down from another ordinance, which was passed down from another ordinance, and they go back to circa 1972, and things are a little different now. Trucks are a little bigger, fire engines are a little bigger, things of that nature. And we may have just missed some of that stuff, just accepting what we looked at, in the previous ordinance, that's all. I don't want to make it any longer, Lord knows, but it occurred to me tonight that maybe we may be off base with some of the expectations we have of what developers can do and make money on. Let's face it, if they can't make money on some of that stuff, as much as we may not like it, we're not going to make any progress developing what we have available to us, one way or the other.
I can ask the police department, as well as the fire department, to take a look at it and see if they see anything that creates any problems or brings any concerns to them.
Okay.
While they would be out performing their responsibilities. I can do that. We can do that, I guess, fairly quickly. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. That would make me feel a little better because it seems like we've left them off out of things.
Chairman Miller, have a comment?
Yes.
One thing that the Water Commission has a subcommittee on ordinances, Ordinance 159, and there's sections in the new zoning ordinance around irrigation systems, gray water recycling, rainwater harvesting that are in the new zoning, and they're word for word from 159. The subcommittee will present this to the Water Commission next month, at the end of this month, and I hope to bring those recommendations to P&Z to make the revisions to the new zoning ordinance for that recommendation. So for next month, we'll cover that. And also, based on the discussions today, I think we need to revisit table 2.0507. There's some things there that we probably need to look at again. That's the dimensional regulation table.
Okay. There you have it. You need to look at some things based on tonight. Another one I forgot, that was the water, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can't mention about that.
There were no decisions at this time, but.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned it to me. I knew there was one I was forgetting. I couldn't remember which one it was. Business item B, future agenda items. Ideas? We got to come up with something, otherwise we won't have a meeting. Future agenda items.
We're waiting on the finished product. If we want to go back and look at, one of the things we're talking about, do we need more input from the developers in that? So if what we're asking for or putting in the ordinance is not going to go work and we're getting ready to send that to city council, do we want to look at that again and revisit that?
Certainly.
Is that something that we can do in a month's time to just go back in those particular small areas and take a quick look at it?
Well, I think the technical committee needs to look back at, what was the table 2.0, 0.5, 0.0, 0.7? Yeah. We need to go back and look at that. The technical committee looks at that and see how it lines up with some things. So we need to talk about that in the agenda items. I think we can leave it open, Ms. Kane, if Mr. Overman gets back with you with some ideas or says, oh yes, I can make this work, or where do we go from here in terms of negotiation? Maybe we can add that to the agenda later on, going down the line. We can't talk about it tonight, but I know we can add things to the agenda. Was it up to 72 hours before, or is it, how long it has to be posted?
72 hours, yes.
Yes,
72
72 hours.
72 hours. So up until 72 hours before the next meeting, we can add something to the agenda if he gets back to you and hasn't been run off too far down the line in terms of some of the things that we asked. Ms. Owen?
Yes, sir. I was just going to ask, based upon what has happened tonight with Overman pulling his request for petition, does that also cancel the meeting for Thursday, the special meeting?
No, there's other things on that agenda,
Or
wasn't
was there other things on the agenda for that?
But the city council meeting,
There were other things on the agenda other
Yeah.
than that.
yeah. So with that having been said, the date and time for the next meeting, which would be September the 8th, at 6 o'clock here in City Hall. That leaves us open to the second citizen comment period. For this citizen comment period, nobody had to sign up. The total time limit is 20 minutes. Does any of the remaining citizens want to talk? And then after you give your name, your address, and then sign over the table if you would. Get 2 minutes, or excuse me, there is a 2-minute limit, I'm sorry.
Rick Cross, 20637 Wall Lane. I'll be much less than 2 minutes. You're welcome. I'm still hearing a lot of people are against the idea of garden homes because the lots are so small and the streets are so small. And they're acting as if they have to live there, and they don't want to live there. Well, that doesn't mean that a garden home is wrong. It's just not right for you. There are a lot of other people that would like to live in garden homes. A quarter acre, if that's your minimum lot size, you have to maintain a quarter acre lot. If the idea behind a garden home is you don't have to go out there and mow the lawn and weed and stuff like that. That's the idea of a garden home. Also, if the garden home doesn't go in there, what will go in there? A Walmart? I don't know. Okay, so I think it's a really good alternative to what could possibly go in there. All right, I know that a lot of folks from Regency Run who would live right across the street from it like the idea of having a nice, upscale, expensive garden home. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Nobody else having come to the podium, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. We adjourn the meeting at 9:41 p.m. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't think anybody would object.
It's late.
Yeah, it is late. I think it was a productive meeting.